Welcome. Good morning. There we go. We're live on Instagram. This is being recorded to the YouTube. Let's wait for everybody to come in. We got a lot to talk about with the astrology and the energy of this upcoming week. We, ooh, it's so hot. Oh, we just had our Mercury retrograde start as of yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Excited to tap in with you all. Let's wait for the folks to pile in on the live. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to do a little recap of last week's astrology, and then we're going to talk about this week's astrology, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's to come. We've been in a period of a lot of energetic shift, especially last week. We had Uranus retrograde back into Taurus. We started our Mercury retrograde yesterday in the sign of Sagittarius on Sunday. We had Venus move into Scorpio on Friday. We have a Jupiter retrograde coming up starting tomorrow. Jupiter's about to retrograde, so he's already pretty much stationed. And he is going to retrograde. We are in our 2 week full moon in Taurus cycle. Our full moon in Taurus happened last Wednesday. Let me see if there's anything else that I'm missing. Oh, Mars went into Sagittarius last week on the 4th. Let me see if there's anything else that I'm missing. No. So we've had a lot of planets change signs since last week, which we're feeling and seeing the impact of this week. Okay. And I'm gonna talk to you guys more about that. Greetings, good morning, everybody coming in. Thank you, welcome. Love you all. Look at all these beautiful faces. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be at in the world. My name is Louie. So nice to be here with you all. Thank you for sharing this energy, this space, this time and place with me. I am an intuitive astrologer and tarot reader, and I do karmic astrology. So that's about, the astrology of our soul, the astrology of our soul's direction and our soul's development. That's what I call it. Okay. So we have the moon in Leo as of a few hours ago. So the moon's now in Leo. And we are going through a very intense, energetic time. I did pull some cards to kind of give me some insight into the energy of this week, but I'm excited to be here with you all. Okay. So, let's do a little bit of a recap of last week, though, before we dive into this week, because there's just a lot of energetic shift that is happening, and we can feel kind of caught in between timelines right now. We can feel like all of a sudden we want to go in a different direction, make a different choice, make a different decision. We can feel like there's things coming back from the past right now that we've been avoiding that we got to deal with. And there's also a lot of emotion in the sky, a lot of emotional energy in the air. So there's been a lot of kind of self-reflection, a lot of grief, a lot of fear, a lot of sadness, a lot of frustration with people, that have been coming up for people. But this week, we are taking action around the ways that we've been feeling. So this week, because we have Mercury retrograding on top of Mars. So as of yesterday, we've entered, as of Sunday, November 10th, we've entered our Mercury retrograde and it's conjoining Mars. And that's what we're really going to be sitting in energetically this week is this Mercury retrograde on top of Mars in Sag. So Mercury is retrograding starting at 6 degrees Sag, but he's sitting with Mars. He started retrograding just within 2 degrees or 3 degrees of Mars. Okay, so with that being said, we have an exact Mercury Mars conjunction on Wednesday. They're going to conjoin at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, but this is not a typical Mercury retrograde. I did say I was going to go over the Mercury retrograde over the weekend, but this weekend was very dramatic and very climactic and very intense for me. So I what didn't do our Mercury retrograde live that I promised you guys this weekend, but it's okay. We'll get to it possibly eventually. Okay, and if we don't get to it, then I'm going to talk about it today. But the fact that Mercury, Mars are retrograding, or that Mercury is retrograding on top of Mars, tells us that there's going to be a lot of frustration or angst or a lot of irritation in the collective energy. And also Mercury's retrograding in Sagittarius. So if you are a mutable sign, even if you're a Gemini, Virgo person, the fact that Mercury is going backwards tells us that mutable people, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, and also those ruled by Mercury, so Gemini, Virgos, they're going to be going backwards in some type of way, or they're going to be having to go and review and revisit certain choices or decisions. Or this Mercury retrograde can bring about a conversation, can bring about a triggering moment because it's in combination with Mars, where something needs to be addressed, something needs to be discussed, something needs to be dealt with in a way that's possibly uncomfortable or difficult, or in a way that's possibly emotionally stressful. Okay. So we need to honor that. All right. Um, this is part of our week recap from last week. Also, we had a full moon in Taurus last Wednesday, and we're in this 2 week cycle, and we're experiencing our square, our tension point, our release point, our action point from that full moon in Taurus that we had last Wednesday. We're experiencing it today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Okay. This is because the moon is in Leo for the next 3 days, starting today. And the moon in Leo is the waning square. Did I say? Yeah, it's the waning square from our full moon in Taurus. So the full moon in Taurus is when the sun and the moon are directly opposite each other, right? Well, the waning square from the full moon is the moon is continuing to move forward on its path. And the moon, right, it formed an opposition with the sun when it was full. Now the moon is at its quarter position. So the moon is in this waning square to the sun. The moon in Leo and the sun in Scorpio, they square each other. That's a tense aspect. And so for the next 3 days, there's going to be a lot of tension or friction, or there could be possibly some kind of movement around whatever the full moon in Taurus is trying to like teach you, or trying to show you, reveal to you, or however the full moon in Taurus is trying to get you to move. The full moon in Taurus cycle is about our values, and the full moon in Taurus happening in conjunction with Uranus retrograding back into Taurus tells us that this full moon cycle in on with the combination of Uranus going back into Taurus, this full moon cycle is trying to reveal to us or show us things that are unstable, that are causing us excessive anxiety or nervousness, right? Because the full moon in Taurus is asking us to invest in things that bring us security and stability, but the full moon in Taurus is also pushing us to remove or release things, or transform and change things that are causing us anxiety and stress and instability, right? So the full moon in Taurus is like a stability checkpoint. This full moon in Taurus cycle that started Wednesday of last week, it's going to go all through this week until our new moon in Scorpio that's going to be happening next week. But the new moon in Scorpio next week is directly opposite Uranus and Taurus. So we're not going to be getting away from this Uranus and Taurus, this retrograde of Uranus and back into Taurus. We're not getting away from that energy anytime soon. We're going to have to experience it or confront it again with the new moon in Scorpio that we're going to have next week, right? So, with that being said, we need to be very mindful and very aware of what Uranus re-entering Taurus, our Taurus house, especially if you're a fixed sign, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. We need to be very mindful and very aware and very intentional and very conscious of how Uranus's energy back in Taurus is going to impact us, or how Uranus is going to get us to move or change, or even how Uranus is going to complete some kind of narrative or story that we've had attached to him over the last 7 years since he's been in the sign of Taurus, right? We got to remember Uranus he's dipping his toes back into Taurus for the next like 4 or 5 months. And then he's going to start his path in Gemini, his 7 year path in Gemini next year firmly. He dipped his toes into Gemini this year, right? He's retrograded back into Taurus, but we're wrapping up and completing and finishing our Uranus and Taurus lessons, right? And this full moon in Taurus, in combination with Uranus going back into Taurus, from last week, Wednesday of last week to this week, going into next week until we get to our new moon in Scorpio, which is opposite Uranus and Taurus, right? Is about kind of reestablishing ourselves, reassessing our value system. It's about understanding that we need to invest our time, our energy, our resources, our love, our attention into things that bring us stability, security, abundance, consistency, safety, dependability, Taurus things. Taurus is a sign that is comfortable, that is secure, that is safe, that is stable, right? Taurus energy resonates with the second house. And the second house is about your resources. It's about your financial foundation. It's about your bank account, but it's also about your value system and it's about the foundation of your life. So it has a lot to do with what makes you feel safe and secure in terms of material comfort, but also emotional, relational comfort. Where does the emotional, relational comfort part of Taurus energy manifest? Well, it manifests in the truth and the fact that Taurus opposes Scorpio, right? Scorpio is this sign of trust, is this sign of vulnerability, is this sign of merging, is this sign of, can I evolve? Can I transform? Can I, merge with others, right? Do I feel safe to, to help others financially? Do I feel safe to receive? Do I feel safe to give? Do I feel safe to buy a house with my partner or my spouse, right? Do I feel safe to pull out debt, to go into loan, to go into debt or pull out a loan? No, that's funny. To pull out a loan or go into debt for, my own future so I can invest in my education, so I can invest in security, right? That's what the axis of Taurus and Scorpio is about. So with this full moon in Taurus and Uranus going back into Taurus, and with Venus in Scorpio and the sun in Scorpio, right? We're kind of like having to deal with this tension between security and safety and like vulnerability and intimacy. Security and safety is Taurus, vulnerability and intimacy is Scorpio. And there's like conflict or this push and pull between them, right? Because this full moon cycle and what we're going to be feeling this week, even for the next 3 days with the moon in Leo, right, squaring the sun in Scorpio, is there's like this we're having to wake up to what is like dead in our life or what needs to transform and change and evolve, and also what is valuable, what is actually worthwhile in our life, what brings us safety and security, and how we need to continue to invest in those things, in those people, in those experiences, in those energies, right? And one of the downloads that actually came to me as I was thinking about the live today, and I was thinking about Taurus, and I was thinking about Venus and Scorpio. One of the things I was thinking about is how our value system really creates security. When we have strong, solid values that we defend and that we use to filter out negative people, negative experiences, or that we use to, hold others accountable, right? We hold others accountable to our value system. What we actually do is use our value system to protect us. Our value system is to protect us and to create safety. Because when we have solid values and when we align with other people's values, or when other people are falling into, I would say, when other people are honoring our own value system and our own worth, like our value, our worth, we feel safe and secure and we feel vulnerable and we feel okay with allowing ourselves to be trustworthy with other people, right? Other people honoring us, respecting our value system, respecting us, valuing us, allows us to feel trustworthy and safe and vulnerable with them. When people do not honor our value system, when people don't value us or appreciate us, when people don't really see our worth or our value that we bring into their life, and when we feel diminished by them, when we feel like they test our values, they test our boundaries, when we feel like taken advantage of by them, what do? Scorpio, we feel betrayed. We don't trust them, right? We don't want to merge with them. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be intimate with them, right? We get jaded. We closed off. We close off. We kind of like push them away, right? As a form of self-protection because we're feeling in some ways undervalued or underappreciated, or we're feeling like they don't really respect us or they really don't really honor our value system, right? And so one of the important things to remember with Uranus back in Taurus, and as we're proceeding through this full moon and Taurus cycle, okay, we still got a week and a half left of it. One of the things that's really important to remember is how you need to hold true to your values and you need to know your worth. Because when you do not have a solid, consistent, stable value system, and when you question your own worth or your own value, that creates space and room for confusion with other people. And that also allows you to be put into situations or to fall into situations where there's instability and insecurity and a lack of safety. You see what I'm saying? So what's important, it's important for this full moon and Taurus cycle that you kind of know your worth and you know your value, okay? And that you actually pay attention to what's happening with your dynamics with others, with your relationship with others, because in some ways, if there's some kind of tension or difficulty or some kind of problem or issue that shows up in a relationship during this full moon and Taurus cycle, it's because there's something that is off balance. There's something that is, where you're feeling undervalued, underappreciated. There's something where there's a value system clash. And this is also one of the things that's really important to remember about relationships, right? Like the foundation of relationships is built off of shared values. And also, the direction of a relationship is informed by our shared values, right? So, and this is one of the things that always comes up for me in when I'm doing readings for people, especially like relationship readings. And whenever I see the chariot card come up, this is like a chariot card thing. For those of you that don't know the chariot card, it's like a guy on a chariot and he's like going. Okay, it's the card of Cancer. Um, it's connected to the moon in the sign of Cancer when it comes to the astrology. But the chariot card is about direction. It's about where we're going, right? And many relationships, they kind of they run the course of destruction and chaos, and they have no direction because both people have conflicting values, and we sit in that conflict and there's no reconciliation of values. Let me explain. One person wants kids and the other person doesn't want kids, right? One person wants monogamy, the other person wants polyamory. One person wants, freedom and space and detachment and to like travel and to move and to not have like a really solid home life, right? One person is more of an outside energy, where the other person is like, I want home, I want family, I want my family unit, I want to be at home all day, I want you to be here at home with me all day, right? These are two different value systems. And what happens in relationships is, we will engage in relationships, we'll realize that our values conflict, that we don't want the same things, and then we stay in them and we convince ourselves, or we try to convince the other person that we convince ourselves that it's okay, I can acquiesce, I can go ahead and accommodate, I can go ahead and compromise my own values in order to keep them. And then we end up feeling resentful and angry as time passes because why you gave up your value or you gave up this desire in some type of way to have a kid or have a baby, but you forewent that. So here you are 10 years, 15 years later, feeling resentful, feeling angry at your spouse because you compromised this desire of yours or this value of yours to want to have a child, but the other person didn't. But to keep them, you compromise that value, and then you start feeling angry, resentful, and you retaliate, right? So what's important about this full moon and Taurus cycle is to really see if your value system aligns with your partner, with your spouse, with your friend, with your family, with whatever. Because if you guys have conflicting values, we need to talk about it. Because otherwise, we're trying to build something, we're trying to go in a certain direction that is very different. That each person wants something different, or is expecting something different, or is envisioning something different for the relationship. And this doesn't have to be just about romance and love. This could be about friendship. This can be with family. This can be in other areas of your life as well, right? And so we have to hold true to our values. And we also got to test people according to our values. I really do feel this, maybe that's just a Scorpio in me. But, I really do think it's important that we know our values, we know our worth, and that we kind of really see if people fit into our values. And sometimes, when we are so invested in a certain desire, a certain value, a certain thing that we want for ourselves, or even a certain thing that we desire from a relationship or partnership, right? We have to be willing to accept that not everyone is going to be able to honor that or match that, or not everyone is going to have the same value system as us. And we got to be willing to kind of grieve that person or let that person go or allow something to transform and change within us. It's possible that maybe we do need to reconsider our values. Maybe we do love someone so much that we can, we will be willing or open to compromise our values and to change them and flex and bend, right? But there's certain things as well that, that can easily get into a place of like self-betrayal or self-deception or self-rejection if we're not careful, right? Because all of a sudden we can find ourselves betraying our own values and going against our own ethics and our own beliefs and our own sense of what we want and what we need in order to hold on to somebody or keep someone. And that's when it becomes unhealthy and toxic. That's where we're going to get resentful. That's when we're going to get angry. That's where we're going to start lashing out. That's when there's going to start being drama, right? So we just got to be mindful of this because I really do feel like, you know, from the full moon in Taurus last week, the combination of the Mercury retrograde on top of Mars, and also Venus entering Scorpio last week on Thursday, this kind of combination, full moon in Taurus, Uranus going back into Taurus, Venus entering Scorpio, Mercury retrograde on top of Mars and Sag, right? This kind of combination is kind of like putting us to the test a little bit. It's putting our value system to the test. It's putting also our ability to trust and feel safe to the test. But sometimes, it's so easy for us to be like, oh, I have trauma, I have trauma, and so this is why I can't feel safe. This is why I can't trust. This is why I'm afraid to be vulnerable, right? But also, right, we got to be mindful because just because you have that trauma, are you engaging or dealing with people that are triggering that trauma, that are playing off of it, that are, not intentionally trying to help you heal or help you work through your traumas, but they're actually making it even worse for you, right? Or you are willingly engaging in situations or in people or in relationships or whatever that are amplifying your traumatic experience or that are a recreation of your own traumatic narratives and stories that you already lived, right? We tend to do this. We find comfort and security in trauma because why? A lot of times trauma could be familiar. Trauma is something we've all, right? We know that it's toxic and unhealthy, but guess what? It brings us a sense of familiarity and even safety sometimes to recreate certain traumatic narratives or stories. So I really do feel we have to ask ourselves this week with Venus moving in Scorpio now, okay? We're moving through this full moon in Taurus cycle, okay? We have that Mercury. This is the first week of Mercury retrograde in Sag, and it starts out spicy because it's with Mars. We got to ask ourselves, like, do the people, do the choices that I make, do my relationships, does this job, does this box, whatever, does it align with my values? Do I feel valued or appreciated? Is the energy of what I'm giving in this connection, in this relationship, to this job, to this whatever, is it pouring back into me? Is it reciprocating or reciprocal in some type of way? Because if not, Venus and Sun in Scorpio, something's got to transform, something's got to evolve, something's got to change, something's got to give, right? To make it more sustainable because Taurus wants it to become the full moon in Taurus is asking us to make things dependable, secure, stable, safe. And Some things need to transform or change in some areas of our life or in some relationships in order to create that stability and safety. But you know what? It might not be possible with that person. It might not be possible in the timeline. It might not be possible with where you're at and where they're at, right? You might be trying to create stability and security and safety with something or somebody that is not secure, stable, or safe. So what do you do? Right? You have to create space and distance. You have to protect yourself, right? A big function of Venus, and this is something that I don't hear any other astrologer talk about. That's irrelevant, but it's just something I don't hear enough because we tend to see Venus as being benefic and about love and attraction and about, all things good. A function of Venus is rejection. Rejection. I don't want this. I don't like this. You're not for me. Get away from me. This is why Saturn, the planet of boundaries, the planet of denial, the planet of rejection and no, exalts in Libra, a Venus sign. Because a big function of Venus is to tell people no, I don't like you. I don't want you. You don't appreciate me or value me. You don't really care for what I bring to the table. You don't have enough to offer me. You don't have enough to give me, right? You can't hold space for me. This is the and rejection is part of love. Well, one of the most difficult parts of love and partnership is rejection. We all dread it. We all avoid it. We all fear it. We don't want to be rejected. Deep down inside, deep down within us, we don't want to experience rejection, right? But that's also a function of Venus. And part of rejection is protection. We reject things to protect ourselves from things, right? And also sometimes rejection is part of it's part of the karmic development or part of the karmic story, like loss, releasing people, letting people go, detachment. Sometimes this is a necessary part of the development of a relationship. It has to go through that. And many times, right, if we really want to change or evolve a relationship, if we want to keep a relationship, but we know it's not good for us or the other person, what do we have to do most of the time? We have to let it go. We got to let it die. We got to reject the other person. We got to kind of move away from it and create space so that new energies, new potentials can manifest, can like show up, right? And so that we can kind of detach from the karmic pattern of the experience of the relationship and allow it to evolve into something more harmonious, more healthy, more better, right? So I think it's very important that this week we be mindful of, as we're moving through this full moon and Taurus cycle, and as Uranus has just retrograded back into Taurus as of Saturday of this past week, we be very mindful of, what makes us feel safe and secure, what makes us feel afraid and, nervous and insecure. We need to be mindful of investing our energy and our time into things that, are bringing back goodness and they're not, bringing confusion. They're bringing a lack of, not bringing a lack of clarity, not bringing, exhaustion, not bringing deprivation, lack, not bringing sadness, trauma into our life, right? We need to be very, very intentional. And, it's Mercury retrograde starting this week. So, there's going to be a lot of miscommunication and it's Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a sign of truth. Mercury goes into his detriment or he's weak in Sagittarius because in Sagittarius, Mercury is not trying to do the Gemini thing where we just want to talk about it and we just want to work through it and we just want to, find a compromise. We want to reach a mutual decision. No, Mercury's not trying to do that when he's in Sagittarius. No. When Mercury's in Sagittarius retrograde, he's like, this is what I believe. This is what I think. This is what my opinion is. This is what I feel. Okay? And this is my truth. And I'm going to give you that truth. Even if you don't like it, even if it bothers you, even if it hurts your feelings, I don't really care. Because why? Right? In some ways, with this Mercury and Sag energy, you haven't been, or even with, full moon in Taurus, Venus and Scorpio, you haven't been, listening to me. You haven't been appreciating me. You haven't been valuing me, right? Like there's something's been off. I've been feeling like you've been hiding something. I've been feeling like you've been moving in a conniving way. Sun, Venus, and Scorpio, right? So with this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius and Mars on top of them this week, expect people to be giving you or for you to feel inspired or motivated to give others, even feeling the courage to give others some very unfiltered, raw, aggressive truth. I think we've been feeling it since yesterday. Um, we've been feeling it since last week, honestly, since the end of last week when Mars went into Sag. Well, Mars went to Sag on Tuesday, but I think we've been feeling it since like last week. After like coming out of the full moon in Taurus, when the moon went into Gemini, I think we started feeling it then because the moon was opposing that Mercury Mars in Sag. So that we started feeling it on, I believe Thursday, we started feeling it. Um, but we need to be mindful because this energy is going to be very strongly present in the air for the rest of this week. And it's going to peak on Wednesday, November 12th, because that's the day that Mercury and Mars make an exact conjunction at 6 degrees. So Mars goes to meet Mercury. The good thing though is, after Wednesday, the 12th of this week, the energy, Mars and Mercury start to separate. So Mars keeps going in Sagittarius and Mercury's going back into Scorpio. So we're gonna start to see this kind of like spiciness, this feistiness, this kind of like aggressive way of speaking or thinking, or even this like irritation. We're gonna start to feel that kind of dissipate. But this energy is really good. Mercury Mars in conjunction, especially Mars retrograde. This energy is really good for like letting go of old habits or giving us the energy and the courage to address certain things or to make certain changes in our life that have a lot to do with physicality, the body, or energy, movement, moving the body. I think really good place to put this Mercury, Mars, and Sag energy, this Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars and Sag energy, is into doing something physical or doing something that you're like passionate about that brings you excitement. You may also want to channel this energy into doing something new that you've never done before. Like, and this could be a new habit, this can be a new experience, this can be a travel experience as well. Going to travel and do something you've never done before, or even like going and having like like an adventure day or something like this, it would be really good to put this Mercury Mars energy towards that. That's a good constructive use of it because this energy is having us feel more brave, more, outspoken, more combative, more, willing to express our truth and things like this. But you just got to be mindful because it's Mercury retrograde in detriment on top of Mars. It can be so easy to get, it's really easy right now to get emotionally triggered, to start an argument or start a fight, to just like lash out and go off and to miscommunicate what you really want to say because you allow the inflammation of Mars, right, to take over. You allow the intense anger, the intense rage, the intense, the emotional experience to overwhelm you or to overcome the clarity and the clarity and the willingness or even the desire to express some kind of truth in some type of way and to just say what is on your mind, to say what you feel and say what you're thinking, but to do it in a way that's constructive, not in a way that's, you know, violent or dangerous or abusive or just mean and angry. Mercury Mars together in Sag can be a very, very angry signature for if someone has that in their birth chart. So, with Mercury Mars in the sky, especially with Mercury retrograde, we can misperceive attack, we can misperceive, someone could say something to us, and we could like take it personal and feel like it was like intentional and feel like it was like a jab, but like it's not. Like they're just expressing truth, or we're just taking it personal, or we're just misperceiving the communication for something that it isn't. So before we like jump into arguments or fights and before we perceive attack and go to war, whatever, make sure you slow down and ask questions and get clear, okay? Before you proceed. Before you declare war, be like, wait a minute. Was that like thing that person said, or was that thing that the person's doing, is it meant to harm me, or is it something where, they're just acting in a way that's negligent and irresponsible and they're not really understanding how that impacted me. We got to be very discerning with that. Because Mercury retrograde on top of Mars is very confusing, especially because Saturn and Neptune went back into Pisces. Things are kind of confusing right now. We're confused. Whenever there's a lot of mutable energy, like Mercury, Mars, and Sag, Saturn, Neptune back in Pisces, North Node in Pisces, right? The nodes are in Pisces and Virgo. Whenever there's a lot of mutable energy, things move towards transition and change. The mutable signs are where things end and where things begin, right? If you think about the mutable seasons, Pisces season, Gemini season, Sag, Virgo season, these are the seasons of transition, and these are the seasons that bring us from one energy to the next. But they're like murky, they're weird. The weather is always weird during mutable seasons. Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag season, the weather is in transition. The weather is changing, right? That's why these are mutable seasons. And it's not quite summer or it's not quite, summer, but it's not quite winter. It's like fall, it's something in between. That's what the mutable signs are. That's what the mutable seasons are. So with Mercury retrograde on top of Mars and with Saturn and Neptune back in Pisces, there can be a little bit of fog and confusion. There could be a lack of clarity or lack of understanding, but there's this deep inner knowing that something's changing, something's evolving, something is not going to be what it was before, and it's becoming something that we've never seen before, right? Like we're in that space, that awkward space of change and transition. But yeah, if you are a mutable sign, if you are Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, especially if you have that in your big three, if you have it in the early degrees, so if you have anything at the early degrees of Sag, Pisces, Gemini, or Virgo, this Mercury retrograde this week is going to be hitting you very strongly on with the combination of Mars. So I want you to be mindful of being triggered, of being attacked, of going on the attack, of this anxiety and this paranoia and this desire to kind of like restructure things or do something different in your life, okay? Because you're going to be feeling it, especially if this is aspecting you directly. The immutable signs are going to be feeling it as well. If you ever Sun, Moon, or Rising in immutable, especially, but also collectively, we're feeling like we got to go back to the drawing board and we got to do things different, right? This Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius wants us to align our vision, wants us to get into alignment with the dream, the vision. Because Sagittarius, right, is the vision. It's connected to Sagittarius is connected to the hips and the thighs and the liver. And when it comes to traditional Chinese medicine, the liver is known as the general. So the liver is the leader of the rest of the organs, and the general is the visionary. He could see the bigger picture. He could see the vision. He could see the dream. He's the one that says the liver is like, we're gonna go and do this. We're gonna go and do that. We're gonna go to war over there, and we're gonna go and achieve this. And we're gonna. That's what the liver does. That's the consciousness of the liver. And so when Mercury and Mars are or when Mercury's retrograding in Sag on top of Mars in Sag, the sign of the liver, right? The invitation is to go back to the drawing board and to realign with our vision, with our dreams, with our direction, with where we're going, and to also kind of do our best to get some clarity around that. Or at least to start, setting the foundation towards that. And we may not even know what the vision is. We may not even know where we're going and what we're doing. We may not even know what we want. But guess what? Mercury retrograde on top of Mars this week. This is a beautiful week to set some time aside to really ask yourself, what do I want? What do I desire? What is my dream? Right? What is my destination? Sagittarius, right? The sign of foreign travel, the sign of destination, the sign of flight, the sign of, long distance travel, right? We also got to think about our life in that way. Our life is one big long distance journey, Sagittarius, right? But where are we going? Where do you want to go? Right? Do you want to go to Europe? Do you want to have a European? Do you want to go to Australia? Do you want to go to China? That's if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what the vision is, then your actions and your behaviors and your thoughts are not going to align with anything. There's no central focus, there's no guiding light. We need a guiding light. We need that in order for us to feel inspired and motivated. Because when we don't have a vision, when we don't have a destination, when we don't have a dream, when we don't, then we're kind of just like living. We're just living. There's no sense of purpose. There's no sense of direction. You know what I mean? So it feels like this week with Mercury retrograde on top of Mars, and we have this Mercury Mars conjunction on Wednesday. This week is an invitation to really, and you know what you can do as well? You can just sit with your liver, be like, close your eyes, be like, all right, liver, what do we want? Where are we going? What are we doing? And feel into the liver and just get quiet and get silent. And also, like the hips, feel into your hips, feel into your lower back. Be like, okay, where are we going? Where is our destination? Where are we walking to? Where is the journey? And just get quiet and listen and see what your body has to tell you. See what thoughts come to you, right? And so, yeah, another thing I will say with this Mercury retrograde on top of Mars, there's gonna be repressed anger that comes up for a lot of people, and they're gonna act on it. So, if you've been feeling angry or irritable, if you've been feeling possibly even hurt by a situation or by somebody or whatever, this Mercury retrograde in combination with Mars this week is gonna kind of be the impetus possibly of you expressing that anger, you finally going off on someone, you finally addressing somebody, you finally saying something about it. Because Mars is the planet of anger and irritation and action and power, right? And Mercury is the planet of communication and speech and our thoughts and patterns and things like this and our habits and our behaviors and also coworkers. So another thing, I want you guys to be mindful of conflict with certain people with this Mercury retrograde in Sag on top of Mars. So the influence of Sag is going to bring arguments with people that are wiser than us or people that we look up to. So this can be with a doctor, with a therapist, with a coach, with a mentor, or a grandparent, or even a parent. Okay. The Mercury Mars combination. Mercury is a planet of what? Siblings, aunts, uncles, our friends, coworkers, our job. Okay, and also like neighbors, people in our neighborhood, or people that we run into every day. So I want you to be mindful of these people in your life, friends, neighbors, siblings, aunts, uncles, extended family, your coworkers, your job, because the fact that Mercury is retrograding in combination with Mars on top of Mars tells us that there's going to be possibly some kind of conflict or tension or some kind of eruption of pressure or some kind of argument or some kind of fight or something that can happen with these people specifically this week because Mercury and Mars are like together. Okay. Um, the other thing is with men, Mars things. Disagreements with men, holding men accountable, finding, having to go ahead and address things with men, or even men acting kind of differently, or men kind of moving in different ways, or even men spinning the block, coming back around, with Mercury on top of Mars, Mars is the planet of masculine energy of men. So with Mercury on top of Mars, Mercury retrograde on top of Mars, we might see some men that we haven't heard from or talked to in a long time, spinning the block and coming back and having something to say. Okay. If you are a Sag or Gemini rising, you need to be mindful of people coming back from the past. If you are a mutable sign in general, you need to be mindful of people coming back from the past. If you are a fire sign or an air sign, especially if you have a fire, air sign, sun, moon, or rising, be mindful of the people that do resurface right now. Okay. There's a few things I have to say to that, and I might as well say them right now. So, if when people come back from the past, it's for a few different reasons, okay? And you got to have your discernment goggles on to know to be able to identify what's the reason why. Like, why is this person coming back? The first thing you should ask yourself when someone comes back from the past is, why are they coming back? Why are they coming back? And are they coming back to kind of resolve or reconcile? Is that their desire? Are they coming back to test? Are they coming back because the universe still has something for me to learn from this, which is usually what it is, right? Are they coming back to get closure or are they coming back to give you an opportunity for closure, right? You got to be discerning with this. And you want to be clear. You got to get clarity from them around why they're coming back, what they want. If they're coming back and they don't know what they want from you, they just know that they're back and they just like, okay, well, I just want to see. No, it's a no. It has to be a no because we only want to engage with people that want that are coming at us with intention and with purpose and with meaning and with clarity, right? We only want to be in relationship with people that are intentional about us, that are clear with what they want from us, that know what they want from us. If they're coming back because they miss us, but then they don't, there's no clarity or no focus, or there's no, you know, there's no mode of improvement, or there's no a plan to do better. What are we doing? What are we doing? Right? And before we let someone back in, I think many times people come, Mercury retrograde brings people back temporarily as well. Mercury retrograde, a lot of times what starts, or what we begin during Mercury retrograde, or what reconnects to us, or what we go back to during a Mercury retrograde, it's not going to last outside of the retrograde. It's only going to be like a little 2, 3 week blip. And as soon as Mercury goes direct within a week or two, everything goes back to the way it was before the Mercury retrograde in terms of the connection, in terms of the relationship, right? Mercury is a finicky planet. And so what I mean by that is Mercury is not a consistent, not a reliable, not a dependable planet. Mercury is very weak. Mercury is very flighty. Mercury can be very inconsistent and unreliable, right? Those are qualities that he has to cultivate and develop, right? But Mercury can be a planet that is very shallow, and he's not really, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm reaching out to see how you've been, to check on you, but there's no real intention, there's no real desire, there's no real goal, right? To amend things, to heal things, to bring things back together, right? Sometimes it's just someone's just wants to know. They're just curiosity. Mercury. Oh, I'm just curious. What are you doing? What are you up to? Do you happen to miss me? Do you not miss me? Are you willing to like put up with my bullshit again? Are you willing to just deal with the lack of energy and attention and time that I give you? Are you willing to settle for less? Like that's what Mercury retrograde is asking you a lot of times when someone comes back. Mercury retrograde is asking you, are you willing to just go back to the same old bullshit, right? Because most of the time there's not going to be anything that changes. I hate to say it, but there's not. Mercury retrograde is not a thing that brings permanent transformation or change. It just isn't. Mercury retrograde is a very temporary thing, you know? We get what? We get three a year, roughly. We get three Mercury retrogrades a year, and they're 3 weeks at a time. You know, Mercury is the planet that retrogrades the most often, and because he retrogrades so often, this diminishes the power of the retrograde of his retrogrades, right? Because we're like, oh, here we go again, another Mercury retrograde. Oh my God, here we go. You know, the shit's gonna hit the fan. My car is gonna go out. My computer is not gonna work, right? I'm gonna receive that text, right? Because Mercury rules communication. So Mercury rules texts. Mercury rules text messages, phone calls, emails, letters. These are all Mercury things. So when Mercury retrogrades, we get letters, phone calls, texts, emails from things of the past, right? To resolve them, possibly, potentially, or to find closure with them, or to even dispel some kind of karmic lesson, or even to reinforce a certain lesson that we need to learn. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, and pay attention to where Mercury is retrograding your. Oh, why did I do that? Why did I keep doing that? Pay attention to where Mercury is retrograding in your chart. You guys want to see my cute little teacup? Let me show you my cute little teacup. I've been drinking tea out of these like cute little teacups. Look at this. Yeah, it's my cute little teacup. Mm, so good. Roasted dandelion tea. So yeah, when Mercury's retrograde, things that come back from the past, they're usually only going to linger or be here temporarily. And they're going to come back in a very, it's just going to be a text, it's just going to be a phone call. Don't expect like, someone to come back with like flowers and roses and this like whole like I'm ready to change my life around. They come back with keys to a car and they're like, "Here you go. I want to give you a car because I'm ready for you to move in with me." Like, we're not gonna see that kind of big, tremendous, you know, turning a new leaf energy. It's just not gonna happen. It's just not a realistic thing during Mercury retrograde. So we need to honor that. That's okay. 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 So, all right, we've been talking about Mercury Mars retrograde. We talked about Uranus going back to Taurus, bringing instability and insecurity, especially with fixed signs, bringing a shift to our value systems or even a test with our value systems. We've been talking about our full moon in Taurus. So last week, Venus moved into Scorpio. Okay. It's funny because we're an hour in, but I'm like still doing a recap. Venus went into Scorpio last week, but let me tell you, Venus went into Scorpio on Friday. Venus in Scorpio, she's in her detriment. It's gonna continue to be a little rough. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think this Venus in Scorpio transit is gonna reveal a lot of hidden motives, hidden intentions. I was talking about this last week, but I'm gonna reinforce what I said last week. I think it's gonna, expose and reveal hidden motives, hidden intentions between people. I think, there's gonna be a lot of realization or epiphany around deep, profound emotions that other people have been hiding or avoiding or denying. So let's say someone is been like they've been liking you, but they haven't said anything. Well, now that Venus is transiting Scorpio, they may say something or act on it, or they may even feel a moment of like resentment, or they may just reach a moment of like, "Ugh, I like you, I want you. Is this doable or is this not?" Right? So there might be some very hard truths or clarity that come out in relationships that could be kind of painful or kind of sad with Venus and Scorpio. But I also do think I'm just looking at the tarot spread that I pulled, and I got the Seven of Swords in reverse. I got the Moon card. I got the Six of Cups and the Knight of Cups in reverse. I also think that, we're going to be getting a lot of clarity around what people really want from us or what we really want from others in terms of relationships now that Venus is in Scorpio and this week. I think that we are going to continue to see um it's like, can I merge with this person? Do I trust this person? Does this person value me, right? And if not, something's got to evolve, something's got to change, something's got to give, or I got to release this person and set this person free. That's kind of like what the Venus in Scorpio is giving me, okay? The Venus in Scorpio is also very important for fixed signs. So Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. Venus in Scorpio is going to be shifting or changing some things in your relationship dynamic, especially if you have Venus in a fixed sign. So if you have Venus or the moon or the rising in a fixed sign, so in Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, or Leo, because Venus is going to be either conjoining you, squaring you, or opposing you, right? Um, and Venus is going to be making some shifts or changes for fixed signs, especially if you have a fixed Venus or a moon or a rising sign. You may see some kind of really deep, intense, dramatic changes in your romantic life or in your social life or in your love life in some type of way, okay? And you just want to be very mindful of that, my fixed people, this week with Venus transiting Scorpio. We had a very dramatic Venus Pluto square that happened right as she went into Scorpio on Friday, though. So, Venus square Pluto between Aquarius and Scorpio is that Venus Pluto square this past weekend was a little intense. That energy is pretty much died down though. Where's Venus at as of today? Yeah, she's at 5 degrees. So there's like 4 degrees of separation from Pluto at 1 degrees and Venus at 5. Oh, but we also got to be mindful of the moon square Venus today and tomorrow. Well, today mostly Venus is squaring the moon, which is good, but there could be some things around like affection, admiration, Moon and Leo, affection, admiration, attention, wanting to be seen or recognized, and that coming into conflict with what we're giving, what we're receiving, what we want to give, what we want to receive, our experience of our relationships, what's actually been happening in our relationships, right? With Venus and Scorpio. So this tension between the moon and Leo and the Venus and Scorpio is something that we got to be very aware of today. And the moon also is separating from an opposition with Pluto. I don't know why. I just feel like this full moon in Taurus cycle this week going into next week is going to bring a lot of revelation and epiphany about relationships in general. I think I was talking about this with the full moon in Taurus live as well. And I also think that like how whatever is meant to like evolve or shift or whatever is meant to transform and change in the realm of relationships, there's like a triggering happening. There's like a triggering. There's like a okay, it's time to do that thing. It's time for it to evolve. It's time for something to change. It's like there's like a triggering that's happening with that energy. Okay. We're needing to address that. Okay. Are you guys still here? I haven't seen anyone said no one has said anything. No one is typing anything. So I just want to make sure that everyone is here and present. I'm seeing like the fire things on the right and stuff, but are you guys talking? Are you guys saying things or no? Because I'm not able to see anything if you guys are on the live. Can someone just say like, hello, hey, how are you? Because I'm not seeing any kind of, I'm not seeing any words. I don't know if you guys have been talking or not. You guys have been? Oh, well, I can't see it. I'm just looking at the 100. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna minimize this and reopen. I'm gonna minimize the Instagram window and reopen it to see if I can fix that. Okay? Give me a second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Do you guys want to type something and see if it like comes through? If not, it's okay. We're just gonna continue to live like this. I'm gonna continue to just stream of consciousness it and just continue to speak. Oh, someone sent me something in the question box. Oh, someone said yes, we're here in the question box. Okay. Yeah, it's sad, but I'm not able to see what you guys are typing for some reason, so I don't have access. So if you guys are asking questions or if you're like, saying something, you guys could talk amongst yourselves, but I can't see it unfortunately. So if I don't answer a question or if you ask a question and I can't see it, it's because of that. Okay? Just want to let y'all know. Okay. So yeah, all right. There's no dialogue between me and my Instagram community right now, but it's okay, it's fine. Okay, because I don't want to have to restart the live and have to start from the beginning. Okay. So we're just gonna keep going. Um, all right. So I'm on a running through a murder. So if you're a mutable sign, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, I just gotta say, you guys just gotta hang in there, okay? If you're a mutable sign, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, you just got to hang in there. There's not a lot of like clarity right now, and the big focus for you is just like focus on the little things. Focus on the little things. So focus on just like your day-to-day routine, your day-to-day habits. Focus on like the foundational things. Like get work on things that you can work on or that you can address, okay? If things are feeling overwhelming or things are feeling confusing right now, if you're just feeling very shut down or very blocked and you're a mutable sign, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, I just want you to understand that Jupiter, the ruler of Sag and Pisces, is starting to go retrograde as of tomorrow. Mercury, the ruler of Virgo and Gemini, just started retrograding on Sunday. Okay. Saturn and Neptune have gone back into Pisces and they're both retrograde. The nodes are continuing to transit. They're in the middle degrees right now of Pisces and Virgo. Okay. We're right in the halfway mark of with our nodal cycle and our eclipses going through Pisces and Virgo. So, with that being said, this is about going back to the drawing board. This is about looking at what's in your closet and be like, okay, I don't wear this shit anymore. I gotta throw this shit out. I like this. This is cool. This can stay. I actually want to take my style in a new direction. I want to like start dressing differently, or I need a new wardrobe. I need to go shopping anyways. But before I do that, I need to like throw shit out in my closet and make space for the new shit. That's where we're at right now, especially mutable signs. Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius. Okay. If you are a fixed sign, this is the start. You're the star of the show right now. All right. Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. We're in Scorpio season. This is a fixed season, right? We just had our full moon in Taurus. We have a new moon in Scorpio coming up next week. This is about pivoting for you, okay? If this is about pivoting for you, this Scorpio season is about going through a little bit of a death and rebirth for fixed signs especially, okay? So just keep that in mind, all right? There's things that are evolving, things that are changing, and there's things that you don't want to let go of. Fixed signs are the ones that don't want to let go. Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, they just don't want to let go of shit. They just don't like change. They like stability, they like security, they like consistency. They want things to be the same a lot of times. The fixed signs. And the fixed signs are having to confront this truth that guess what? We are in a timeline of change. They are in a timeline of change and they need to just lean in and they need to allow the evolutionary process to happen, even though it's painful and hurtful, even though it feels like surgery. Scorpio is a sign of surgery, and sometimes the transitions that we go through in our life are extremely painful. and it feels like, oh, there's something getting removed, there's something we're getting dissected into. We're going through like this really intense surgical procedure where it's like, you know what? This has it's like it's time to intervene. It's time to go ahead and get into the meat and the bones. It's time to go ahead and dig into the body, and it's very painful. It's very difficult, but it's also necessary. It's part of the transmutational process. It's part of, acknowledging that in order for us to call a new life and growth, we gotta, we gotta like surrender, and we gotta let death happen. You know what I mean? That's just the process. That's how it works. Okay. So yeah. All right. Someone said, should I wait till after the retrograde to look for a roommate or apartment? No, you can start doing it now. You may not decide on it until after the retrograde, or you may not decide on it, or it just may be delayed in a way until Mercury goes direct, right? Or you may, let's say you find a roommate or something during the retrograde, and then when Mercury goes direct, you're like, actually, you know what? I don't want that roommate anymore. Actually, I changed my mind. So that could happen, But no, you should, yeah, keep living your life, keep doing your thing. Never let astrology, well, I don't know, I gotta be careful with saying that, but be very mindful of how you let astrology take power over your life. You never want to give too much power to astrology. You have to trust yourself, and we use astrology as a tool. We don't let astrology dictate things in our life. We don't give anything outside of ourselves too much power, whether it be a person, whether it be astrology, whether it be tarot cards, whether it be a psychic, whether it be a mentor, whether it be we never, ever give anything outside of ourselves too much power. We never should. We never do. We shouldn't. Because when we do that, you know what we're saying? We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our own inner authority. We don't trust our own intuition. We don't trust our own guiding light, right? There can be 20, 30 astrologers that tell you this is going to happen on this day, right? And then it doesn't happen. Right? Like, because no one ever knows anything, no one's ever right. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to be our own authority. That's what Saturn wants of us, the sun and Saturn. They want us to be our own authority. And in order for us to do that, we have to trust in our own power. And we can't give our power or authority away to things that we just allow things outside of us to dictate or to compromise our own power or authority. So even though I love astrology, and even though I use it every day and I do it for others every day, you're never gonna see me making these like abstaining from a decision or a choice or not starting something because it's Mercury retrograde. No. If it just so happens to be that I'm moving right in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, if it just so happens to be that I find that place, I find that job, I meet that lover, whatever, during a Mercury retrograde, yes, I'm going to take a step back and be like, wait a minute, it is Mercury retrograde. But I'm still going to fully commit to the decision and do it. I'm still going to let it manifest because I'm not going to be like, oh, well, you know what? I can't. I can't talk to you. Oh, let's wait until after the Mercury retrograde to start talking. No, that's craziness. I'm going to sound insane. Imagine you meet someone, right? And you meet someone, right? You're walking on the street, you meet someone, and they're like, "Oh my God, like you're so whatever, whatever. Oh, we have so much in common. I'd love to hang out with you." What are you gonna tell them? Oh, actually, wait a minute. Mercury's retrograde. Actually, wait. No, no, no. Text me on November 27th when Mercury goes direct, and we could pick up our conversation. No, we're not gonna do that. Like, we don't want to give too much authority to the astrology. Okay. We can't give over our power authority. We have to develop a kind of very natural, very, flexible relationship with the astrology. We got to allow astrology to do what it's meant to do, which is it's meant to guide us. It's meant to give us clarity. It's meant to, reinforce our choices and our decisions. It's meant to confirm things for us, but it's not meant to answer all of our questions. It's not meant to confuse us. It's not meant to delay us or set us back. It's not meant to sabotage us. If we develop that relationship with astrology or anything, any divination, tarot, whatever, That is because it's you. That's you. That's your own self-sabotaging relationship that you're developing with the divination sciences, right? Divination is not like, for instance, this is just a collective message for you guys, okay? For those of you that are on your spiritual path and you're working with your spiritual team and you're working with, your ancestors, your guides, your the divine, whatever, okay? You're gonna consult them with questions. You're going to come to them with questions. You're going to come to your spirit team. You're going to come to God. You're going to come to the divine with questions. And you're going to want clarity. And you know what a lot of times they're going to do? They're going to turn it right back on you. They're going to be like, "Oh, you're going to be like, "Oh, what should I do? What are my next steps?" And they're going to look at you and be like, "What should you do? What are your next steps?" You're going to be like, "I don't know what I want. I want clarity around what I want." And then they're going to look at you and be like, "Well, what do you want?" Because you have the questions or you have the answers to a lot of the questions, and they want to help you, they want to support you and guide you, but they can't like make the decisions and make the choices for you. They can't like spoon feed you. You're not a baby. Okay. They're not going to baby us because there's a certain part of our own self that needs to develop confidence and awareness and an intuitive relationship with the self where we can make conscientious, intentional choices and decisions, right? And do it in a way that is like not outsourcing, not outsourcing our wisdom, not outsourcing our confidence, not outsourcing our decision making, not outsourcing our power to others. There's obviously we got to do that at times. Obviously, there are times where we need support, we need help, we need guidance, where we're confused, right? But so we're going to have to go and consult somebody. We're going to have to go and ask for help, right? There are those moments, right? But along our path of development, as we get older and older, we want to develop more faith, more trust, more discernment in our own decision making and our own choices, right? Like, there may be a day that comes to where I don't need the astrology anymore because I have such a strong intuition and a strong relationship with myself and a strong conviction in my own inner knowing that I don't need astrology as a tool anymore, right? I don't need tarot as a tool anymore to give me guidance or give me clarity or give me confirmation, right? I could just get that myself, right? So with that being said, like, don't let the astrology or a little Mercury retrograde hold you back from making a very important decision or choice or hold you back from getting a new job, buying a house, meeting somebody new, you know what I mean? Let's say you're buying a house, right? You got a $500,000 loan that's like ready to go. You need to close on this house on the 10th, right? Like today's the 10th of November. But Mercury's retrograde. And you're like, you call the lender, wait a minute, hold the loan. Wait a minute, I need another week to make the choice. Mercury's still retrograde, right? So you have the lender, you have the seller, you have everybody in limbo, right? Because Mercury's retrograde. And you're not going to sign the paperwork until Mercury goes direct, right? You can do that if you want to. That's totally fine. But sometimes there's going to be things that happen or things that are meant to happen during a retrograde. And it is what it is. And that's the signature that experience or that thing is going to have in its birth chart, right? Like, there are people that are born with Mercury retrograde every day in their chart, and they are surviving and functioning and thriving. Like myself, I have Mercury retrograde in my chart, right? So, you know what I mean? So I want to give you guys that insight because we got to use astrology responsibly, and we got to use it in a way that's empowering and that's not debilitating or that's not like offsetting our power or authority or that's not confusing us, right? If astrology or divination ends up bringing you more confusion, more stress, a lack of clarity, you're not ready for it. And you should step away from it. And you should like take some time away from it, okay? Because all you're doing is projecting your own nervousness, your own indecisions, your own lack of confidence, your own lack of trust. All you're doing is projecting that on the astrology, and it's very easy to make it about the astrology when it's not about the astrology, it's about you. And it's about the relationship that you built with it. And this can be with anything. This can be with any divination science. This can be with the pendulum. This can be with oracle cards. This can be with tarot. This can be with the I Ching. This can be with Lenormand cards. Doesn't matter, right? Like we have to have a certain energetic relationship with the divination sciences and with our spiritual sciences. That's one of respect, that's one of clarity, that's one of awareness, and that's one of empowerment. If astrology, tarot, divination is not bringing you clarity, empowerment, inspiration, excitement, if it's not bringing you, focus, if it's not bringing you like a reinforcement of your own choices or decisions, you got to step away from it. You're not ready for it. You're not ready for it. You're just not. Your consciousness, your psyche, your spirit is not ready for it. Okay? You can go to someone else though, but doing it for yourself, maybe that's not the thing because it's only going to amplify more stress and more anxiety. Also, I love Colin Bedell, Queer Cosmos. I don't know if you guys follow him on Instagram, but you definitely should. He did a video today where he was talking about a lot of us, a lot more people being attracted to astrology because astrology is giving people a false sense of control. And this is what prediction astrology can do. So what he was talking about is how he has stepped away from the astrology and he's been feeling a little frustrated about the astrology because what he's noticed is that people are using it as a crutch for having a false sense of control in their life because we are experiencing times that are very out of our control. Things are feeling more and more chaotic, more and more out of control today, right, than they did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And so the response to that is to reach for things that give us more safety and security and that give us a sense of control. So, astrology, when we start to think about prediction, that gives us this idea that we have control over our future and control over things when the fact of the matter is we don't. We don't. One decision or one choice that someone can make can have this, domino impact on our life that's really much out of our control. And so we don't want to develop a relationship or have a relationship with astrology or any divination science in a way that is like giving us this false sense of like control and having us believe that this is what's going to happen. And, because the chart says this is, I know this is going to happen. I know this is guaranteed to happen. That's delusion. That's fantasy. That's self-deception. And that's a false sense of control. Because then what happens? Then when the astrology fails us and lets us down, we start to feel resentful towards it. We feel betrayed by it. We feel like it's not accurate. We feel like it's but we weren't even consulting it or going to it for the right reasons in the first place. Astrology is a blueprint. It's a guiding light. It's a it's an oracle. It's the planets are in the sky to guide us, to help us develop, to move us in the right direction, to course correct us. That's what the planets are in the sky for. You know what I mean? That's what astrology is for, right? Astrology is the study of how the stars reflect the human condition. You know what I mean? And when we have a healthy, good relationship with astrology, it's not going to be one that is giving us a false sense of control or authority over our life. But it does give us empowerment. Empowerment is a lot different than control, right? Because with control, we get prediction energy. We get this idea that, what I say goes in my life. And, what I want to happen is going to manifest. And, it's delusional. It's just not real because, astrology and the divination sciences, what they should be doing is empowering us to be able to understand our lived experience and to give context and meaning to what we go through, whether it be bad or good, right? And the astrology, when we have a good relationship with it and we understand how to develop our own chart and develop our own qualities available to us in our chart, it empowers us in a way to where we can always respond to life from a place of empowerment. So that even if we go through a moment of loss, a moment of failure, a moment of tragedy, right, we can lean back on the astrology, on the tarot, on the divination sciences to give us clarity and understanding, to help us see the lesson through the experience, to help us turn that tragedy, that loss, that heartbreak, whatever, into something good, into something meaningful, to something empowering or inspiring, right? Like, so I think it's really important that we don't give astrology too much power. We don't let it dictate too much in our life. And what you'll notice if you are someone that finds yourself doing this, I also want you to notice how you do this with people or in other areas of your life. How you offset your decision making, your choices, or your power, and you give it to your parents, you give it to your boss. Sometimes we give it to our kids, sometimes we give it to our spouse, sometimes we give it to strangers or friends, you know? Where else are you giving away your power in your life? Take a look at it because if you're doing it with the astrology, I guarantee you you're doing it in other areas of your life. I guarantee you because it's like pattern. It's a habit. It's something that you do. It's like, oh, well, I'm used to giving my agency, my power, my authority, and my decision making to others, right? And so if I'm gonna do, so we're always gonna, if that's your pattern, you're gonna look to do that with different things. You're gonna look to do that with, if you're doing it with the astrology, you're also gonna look to do that with people. You know what I mean? It's like pattern. So I want you to be, because this Mercury retrograding Sag with Mars is like, what do you want? Trust in your decision making. Do what you got to do. Don't worry about what other people think or what other people are going to say. Mercury retrograde on top of Mars and Sag. Fuck them. Fuck what they think. Fuck their opinions. Fuck what everyone else thinks. You do what you feel is right for you. Okay? And you trust in your decision making and trust in your power. You know? We have to develop confidence. This is actually a conversation that I had with a friend last week. We have to develop confidence in our authority, in our decision making, and our choices. We got to develop confidence in our own power. If we do not feel confident to take a stand in our own life and to be intentional and powerful in our own life, then guess what the universe is going to do? Is going to send us experiences or people that are more powerful or that are powerful that are going to that are going to challenge it and try to take it away from us, or they're going to kind of like become that energy because then we're outsourcing it, right? If we whatever we don't embody ends up manifesting outside of us against us. This is part of the way the universe and the way this reality helps us develop, right? If you are someone that lacks in confidence, and if you start asking the divine and spirit to help you develop confidence, the universe is going to put you in situations that make you feel unconfident, and the universe is going to put you around people that make you feel unconfident. That because why? They're like, all right, you asked for this development, so now we're going to challenge you, now we're going to test you, now we're going to have people make you feel unconfident so that you have to push back to develop the confidence because you're not going to do it on your own. So we're going to go ahead and put you in situations and circumstances that are going to trigger your insecurity. They're going to trigger your lack of confidence to present you with the opportunity to stand up for yourself and be more confident, right? If you start asking the divine and spirit to help you work on your anger, well, guess what? They're going to start putting you in situations where you get tested and you are angry and you get triggered because your work is to what? Work on your anger. How are you going to work on your anger unless you're being triggered and put in angry situations where you have to breathe, calm down, and woo-saw through it? And you have to be disciplined and self-controlled and emotionally regulate yourself. How else are you going to learn to work on your anger unless you're being put in angry situations? Be careful with what you ask for because we think a lot of times that the universe is going to, help us develop in a way that's very soft and very nurturing and very, okay, well, you want to work on your anger. Let me go ahead and bring you an anger management counselor, which, yeah, that will happen sometimes. Oh, let me go ahead and bring you someone that is a little bit more mature, a little bit more developed, who also had a pattern of anger. I'm gonna bring them into your life so that they can help you reflect on your own anger and help you see your own patterns, right? But sometimes the learning comes through them putting you in a situation that's going to test the very thing that you're trying to work on. You know? And so you guys and you're like, why? You're like with the universe, you're like, oh my God, like, I asked you to help me work on my anger, and now I've just been so pissed off and so angry, and now I'm mad at this person, I'm going off on this person. You're missing the lesson. You're missing the lesson. You're missing what the universe is trying to teach you in the moment, in those moments, right? Like you got to do the work. If you want to work on your anger, you got to work on your anger. You got to work on emotional self-regulation. You got to work on emotional self-containment. You got to work on not letting your that anger and that ego, take rise, right? So something to reflect on, something to think about. All right. I felt that this live was going to be very long. I just felt it. When before I hopped on, I was like, oh, we're going to be here for like 3 hours. Here we are. We're an hour and a half in. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Let's talk. Okay. Let's jump into the week ahead astrology. How about let's do that? Okay. Let's jump into the astrology this week. And then I'm going to talk to you guys about Jupiter retrograde in Cancer because Jupiter's about to retrograde starting tomorrow, and he's going to be retrograde until March 11th. So Jupiter does retrograde about 5 months out of the year. And then he goes direct. So he goes retrograde in a sign once, and then he moves on to the next sign. He retrogrades in that sign, and he moves on to the next sign. So Jupiter works in 12-year cycles. It takes Jupiter about a year to transit a sign, and then he does one retrograde in that sign typically before he moves on to the next sign. So we're experiencing our only Jupiter retrograde in Cancer starting tomorrow. So, what is Jupiter retrograde about? Jupiter retrograde is about going back on our beliefs, or our vision, or our goals, or our dream. And it makes so much sense. I think it's so appropriate that we're experiencing a Mercury and Jupiter retrograde within days of each other. They both start retrograding because, Jupiter is the vision, the goal, the dream. Jupiter is also our beliefs, our faith, right? Like what we spiritually believe, our morals, our ethics, our sense of righteousness, our sense of what is right and what is wrong. That's all Jupiter. So with Jupiter going retrograde, we're going to be reconsidering our beliefs, our morals, our ethics, our sense of righteousness, our sense of justice, our sense of right and wrong. We're also going to be in a space of reconsidering our vision and our dream and our goals, right? And then Mercury retrograde on top of that, it's like in Sag, which is ruled by Jupiter. So you got to think about it. Jupiter is retrograding in Cancer, where he's exalted, and Mercury is retrograding in Sag, which is Jupiter's sign. Jupiter rules the sign of Sagittarius, right? And if you put Jupiter or you put Cancer on the rising, where Jupiter's retrograding, in the sixth house away, you get Mercury retrograde with Mars. So this dual retrograde energy of Mercury and Jupiter is also telling us that something the bigger vision, the bigger dream we're having to reflect on or go back on, or having to reconsider with Jupiter, but also like the small little stuff of how we get there, how we get to the bigger vision of the dream, the steps that we got to take, the processes that we got to take, the day-to-day rituals, the day-to-day routines that we got to commit to in order to build towards the vision and the dream. That's also, in a state of reflection, in a state of reanalysis, in a state of restructuring, because we have Mercury and Jupiter retrograding together within days of each other, right? Jupiter's retrograde for 5 months, Mercury's only retrograde for 3 weeks at a time. But it's this combination of the Mercury and Jupiter retrograde at the same time that's going to be very important. And it's Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. So Jupiter's retrograding in Cancer, which is a sign of family, it's a sign of property and real estate, it's a sign of emotion, it's a sign of nurturing and caretaking, it's a sign of the mother. It's a sign of home and ancestry. It's the sign of, what is safe. It's also the sign of our childhood, babies, that time in our life when we are entirely codependent and we are just a fluffy, what's going on here? We're just a fluffy little, what is going on here? Studio effects. That was weird. Um, this time where we're really vulnerable. You got to think about it, right? When we're a baby, we're the moon. Babies are the moon, Cancer. And they're just a little cute little pudgy, sack of meat. That's what a baby is, They're so vulnerable. So with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, we're having to reflect on our past. We're having to reflect on where we have emotionally invested energy, how our ancestry is still impacting us in some type of way, right? We're having to reflect on, our family values and what really matters to us, like what really emotionally matters to us. Does family matter to us? Does being a parent matter to us? Does career matter to us? Does, safety and security matter? Like, what is really important to us emotionally, specifically with the Jupiter retrograde in Cancer? And also, what brings us hope and what brings us joy and what brings us contentment? Jupiter retrograde is going to have us reflect on what brings us hope, joy, and a sense of peace or contentment emotionally, because it's Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, which is a water sign. So this is about how we're feeling. It's about our emotional experience. Okay, so we'll talk more about that, but I just want to open up the conversation of Jupiter retrograde in Cancer with that. Also, Jupiter is retrograding as of tomorrow in a fixed square with Chiron in Aries. So this square between Chiron and Aries and Jupiter in Cancer has a lot to do with woundedness around support, nurturing, caretaking. So what you may realize as Jupiter is retrograding in this square to Chiron and Aries is you may realize that there's certain people that you can't continue to mother, parent, support, give to, nurture, caretake, because it's causing you some kind of exhaustion, some kind of woundedness. It's causing you some kind of pain or something like this. Okay. Or even, there's like a certain codependent pattern that's you have with this person, and you're having to take the short end of the stick. Like you're having to overgive, you're having to over support, you're having to over provide. And with that other, how that other person is showing up in their half of the relationship, they're just on that receiving end, they're just on that taking end, they're not able to really reciprocate or give back to you, right? So I think that's also something that we got to be very, very aware of. Okay. Oh, someone said I flipped my closet Saturday, got rid of what I'm not wearing to make room for what I am. I love that. Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Love that. Love it. If you guys want to talk to me through the little question box, feel free to, okay? If you guys want to say something or make a comment, but I can't see it in the comment section, so it's okay for you to just like put it in the question box because I do see the question box, okay? All right. Yeah, okay. So let's keep going. So that's Jupiter retrograde in a square with Cancer, or a Jupiter retrograde in Cancer in a square with Chiron and Aries. Okay. This could also be about power imbalances. Oh my God, I just got a download around power imbalances in relationships, or even repressed hidden desire stuff in relationships. So what I'm also kind of getting is, and I think it's a combination of Venus and Scorpio with the Jupiter retrograde, going into that square with the Jupiter retrograde going in that square with Chiron and Aries, and also with the Mercury Mars. I don't know. There's something about the Mars ruling over the Chiron and Aries, and the Chiron and Aries squaring the Jupiter, and the Jupiter going retro. There's something about this where there's like woundedness in relationships around desire, around power, Aries, Mars, desire, power, and around repressed, hidden affections, emotions, or intentions. Um, I think this week is a week where people's real motives or true intentions for being connected with us or for us connecting with them becomes obvious or becomes evident or like it's brought to the light in some type of way. Okay. So just be mindful of that. All right, so okay, let's dive into the week. Let's dive into the week. Let's go through the day by day play, okay? So, um we start off this week with the moon in Leo. And the moon today is squaring Venus and it's separating from opposition with Pluto. So there can be a little bit of like an emotional hangover today that we're feeling. There can also be, moments of betrayal, rejection, or just really deep, heavy emotion that needs to be purged. I'm just thinking of, oh my God, I just spilled my tea. I'm just thinking of Venus and Scorpio squaring the moon in Leo. And this is kind of like, you know, emotions coming to the surface that we got to deal with. Emotions coming to the surface that we got to deal with in an uncomfortable way. Okay. And this could be emotions around betrayal, around rejection. This can be emotions around some kind of denial, someone denying us denying somebody else, right? There could just be heavy emotions that are coming up today with the moon's squaring Venus and the moon opposite Pluto. Okay. So you got to be mindful of that. Okay. Um, All right, so that's today, Moon and Leo. The Moon and Leo over the next few days, though, is the Moon and Leo is asking us to it's like we want recognition, we want to be seen, we want to have fun, we want to celebrate, we want to be like in a light-hearted energy with the Moon and Leo, but unfortunately, we're not getting that. Why is this? Why are we not getting the typical fun, innocence, joy that we would usually get with the moon in Leo? Well, it's because the dispositor of the moon in Leo, the ruler of the moon in Leo is the sun. And what sign is the sun in? The sun is in Scorpio. So this tells us that even though the moon is in Leo, which is a very fun, lighthearted, expressive, creative, adventurous sign, it's having to pull energy from the sun in Scorpio. And the sun in Scorpio is like, take a look at your bullshit, take a look at what hurts, take a look at your trauma, take a look at, what needs to transform or change or evolve, take a look at the betrayal, the heartbreak, the loss. Like it's kind of like digging up a lot of heavy stuff. So even though the moon in Leo is like, let's have fun and let's do its thing and let's do our thing and let's move forward and whatever, whatever, and let's kind of just, be in our own energy and let's really value ourselves and let's really, celebrate ourselves. The sun in Scorpio is like, nope. You got to take a look at some deep shit that you don't want to look at. You got to deal with some heavy emotional stuff that you got to that you got to work through. You know what I mean? Um, and you know what? It's important. I think with the moon in Leo today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, I think it's important that we really, in combination, because it's Mercury, the moon in Leo is also trining Mercury, Mars in Sag, right? So Mercury, Mars, the moon in Leo. The moon in Leo is also in this trine with Mars and Mercury retrograde. We're feeling like excited. We're feeling like we got to address something. We're feeling like I'm not gonna just let this, I'm just not gonna let this go. I'm not gonna let this person do this. I'm just not gonna let this, simmer. I'm not gonna let this be what it is. I'm gonna address it. I'm gonna talk about it. I wanna do something about it. I wanna fight over it. I wanna argue about it. I want, like this moon in Leo trine Mercury, Mars, and Sag. The moon in Leo is like, no, they're gonna see me, they're gonna hear me, they're gonna listen to me, they're gonna feel what I feel. It's like that energy. And it's like trining the Mercury, Mars, and Sag. So this Mercury, Mars, and Sag is like, oh no, let's do something about this. Moon trine Mercury, Mars, and Sag. But then the moon is also squaring Venus, and the moon is also separating from Pluto. So we also got to keep in mind, like, if we're feeling this energy of vengeance, if we're feeling this energy of you hurt me and I want to hurt you, and we got to be mindful of this energy because we don't want this energy to exacerbate or to amplify any toxicity that we're already feeling or any toxic energy or any heavy, dense energy that we're already experiencing, already feeling, or that's already existing around us in some type. But we don't want to amplify that, right? So I think it's important to be very mindful of how we move, especially today in our relationships. Um, and we need to allow that kind of transformation, that transmutation process to happen. But if you need to pop some tires and bust some windows, you know, there's this lady on Instagram and she's this black lady and she's so beautiful. She has these teeth. She's like always, I don't know what it is, but she's always like filming content like with like the camera right on her face. So all you see is like her teeth and her mouth and her like nose and stuff. But she's always she's she was she's she the other I saw this video where she was like slash his tires, bust his windows. It's cold outside. Make sure you let the winter in. Go slash his mama's tires. Go bust her windows. Okay. And if that's not enough, go put a chocolate bar in the exhaust pipe. And she was very much giving Mercury retrograde in Mars and Sagittarius. Very much so. And it's interesting because, Sagittarius and Scorpio are these signs that are so close together, right? Like they're literally right next to each other. So what you'll see is that a lot of Scorpios have Sag placements and a lot of Sages have Scorpio placements. And when we get this combination of Mercury and Sag, we get a lot of volatility. Because Sag is a sign that when they get mad or pissed off about something, when they feel slighted, they're gonna do something about it and they're gonna act on it. They're not just gonna like let shit go, okay? And Scorpio is also like that, you know? So when you see people that have a combination of like the Scorpio and the Sag, you gotta be a little careful because if you get on their bad side, they're gonna go off and they're gonna like retaliate and they're going to take it to an extreme possibly. Sagittarius is one of the extreme signs. So Sagittarius is a sign that takes things too far, that takes things to an extreme. They're not just going to go ahead and argue and fight with you. No, they're going to want to destroy your windows, they're going to want to destroy your house, they're going to fuck up your life. Scorpio is a sign like this as well. Scorpio could be very extreme in nature as well. It's like, the tit for tat is not enough for them. Sometimes the vengeance, they need to take it to an extreme and take it really, really far. And it's not healthy, it's not toxic. Or it's not healthy and it's very toxic. So you just want to be mindful of this energy. You want to be mindful of how you're navigating your relationships and your partnerships, especially with Mars and Sag and Venus and Scorpio, because this energy is going to be triggering a lot of people and getting people to people are going to be feeling like they want to retaliate in some type of way. This really is the energy of retaliation. And we're going to be feeling it all this week. We're going to be feeling it all this week. So we just need to be mindful of this. But definitely today, with Moon trine Mercury, Mars, and Moon square Venus today, this can be, these Mars Venus dynamics, these relational dynamics can be very challenging and very difficult. Okay. And so tomorrow, Jupiter goes retrograde tomorrow in Cancer. So tomorrow we start our Jupiter retrograde on November 11th. We're probably already feeling that shift of energy. When Jupiter goes retrograde, we tend to feel not as optimistic or not as positive or not as hopeful. And we tend to kind of go within, and we can be a little bit more, we can question like, our future direction. We could question our vision. We can kind of feel a little bit more unsure about things. So we just need to be mindful of Jupiter starting to go retrograde tomorrow. Okay. Um, Let me see. Hold on. Yeah. Interesting. Jupiter starts retrograding right when he's rising into the sky tomorrow. So right as Jupiter is on the ascendant and as he's rising into the sky, which is going to be around what time is this? It's going to be nighttime. It's going to be around, let's see, 21. 10 p.m. You'll be able to see Jupiter rising in the sky. 10 p.m. Pacific time. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be 1 a.m. I don't know if y'all, many of you East Coasters like to stay up late, but if you want to watch Jupiter in the sky, he's gonna be really bright. So another thing to remember is that when planets retrograde, they're really, really bright in the sky. We could see them very, very clearly. Because when a planet retrogrades, it's stationing and it's moving backwards from our perception, but it's actually coming closer to Earth, which is why it gets brighter. Okay. So retrograde planets are actually powerful. They're actually a little bit stronger, and we feel them so much more on Earth because they're actually closer to Earth. So the closer a planet is into proximity of the Earth, the more influence and the more energy that it has. This is why not the more influence, I wouldn't say the more energy it has, but the more influence and impact it has on us. Its energy has on us on Earth, okay? This is why the moon is such a special planet to us because the moon is the closest celestial body to the Earth, right? And the moon, we feel it when the moon is out, or even, when the moon is, we can see it in the sky. We have an emotional, physical body reaction to it. And the moon being so close to Earth, it actually physically changes the Earth. Like it pulls at the water, it changes the tides, it everything. So there's a lot of body rhythms and cycles, even women's menstrual cycles, but also the cycles of other creatures, of other living organisms on the planet that are connected intimately to the moon, right? And so we got to be mindful of that, right? Just some learning, just some sharing some knowledge with you guys. So then the astrology keeps going. So on Tuesday, the 11th, we have Jupiter retrograde that starts, and the moon is going to be going to like the last degree, not the last degrees of Leo. I'm looking at 10 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, November 11th. The moon's at 19 degrees. So it's actually going to be on Wednesday that the moon goes into um, Virgo. Okay. But the reason why tomorrow is important is because tomorrow is when the moon hits the middle degrees of Leo and it squares our full moon in Taurus. And also, tomorrow, the moon around 20 degrees is squaring the sun in Scorpio at 20 degrees. So when the moon and the sun square each other, right? Not only are we having the moon squaring the full moon aspect that we had, the full moon that we had by position on Wednesday of last week, but the moon's actually going to be squaring the sun tomorrow. And when the moon and the sun square each other, there could be some kind of tension or conflict between like identity, authority, self-expression, confidence, are who we are, sun, and like emotion, family, receptivity, what we emotionally need, our sense of safety, security, or even privacy. Because the moon is about privacy, the sun is about publicity, right? Or about like being out in the world, right? The moon is your inner private life, and the sun is your outer public life. Okay, so when the sun and the moon square each other by sign, what we get is we can get a conflict between what is private and what is public. We can get a conflict between our own self-expression, our own confidence, which is the sun, and who we are, and what we emotionally need, or what we're emotionally receiving, or what is actually happening underneath the surface or behind the scenes with the moon. That moon square the sun. It's a conflict. It's a position of conflict. Also, just be mindful of just tense gendered dynamics tomorrow between masculine and feminine energies with the sun and the moon squaring each other. Okay. But this is also a beautiful opportunity with the sun in Leo, or with the sun in Scorpio squaring the moon in Leo, to really vocalize and express yourself, to really express what you need, and to really stop being avoidant, or stop being dismissive, or stop ignoring what your intuition, what your heart, what your feelings are telling you about anything, whether it be about, it could be a career direction, it could be a job, it could be a situation with someone that you're going through, it could be an ex thing, it could be, you got to listen to your heart. Okay, with the moon in Leo over the next few days, especially tomorrow at the moon square the sun, you got to listen to your heart. What is your heart telling you about this thing, about this person, about this place, about this goal, about this dream, about this whatever? Okay, very important. All right. And then the moon keeps moving forward. And so on Wednesday, November 12th, the moon goes into Virgo by end of day. I'm looking at 2100 hours, which is 2100 hours. Also, has anybody watched Boots on Netflix? If you haven't seen Boots on Netflix and you are an LGBT person, definitely watch it. If you're a military person or you're a Mars person, go watch it. Okay? It is so good, and it really gives you an insight into, the struggles of like being gay in the military, and having to hide or deny one's identity, and also the traumas that manifest, or even like the certain patterns of behavior and the certain toxic, unhealthy, you know, mental, emotional stuff that happens when we deny the truth of who we are, or when we are forced to repress ourselves. We're forced to hide. And it's interesting that this show came to me as I was talking about the moon in Leo and the sun in Scorpio, because the moon in Leo wants us to be out and proud and confident and expressive around our identity, where the sun in Scorpio has to hide its identity, has to hide something, it has to repress something, it has to not reveal something about itself, right? um and it's like there's like an element of like self-denial or self-rejection that we get with the sun in Scorpio. So with the sun square the moon, there's this energy of needing to confidently express yourself, and needing to confidently give yourself permission to be vulnerable and open and honest, so that you can feel seen, so you can feel celebrated, so you can feel this sense of openness and vulnerability with others. Okay. This is like a down that I'm getting. Okay. All right, but tomorrow, so the moon doesn't go into Virgo until 2100 hours. But before the moon goes into Virgo on Wednesday, The moon is going to make this square with Uranus and Taurus, and it's going to make a trine with Chiron and Aries. And so around midday, yeah, I'm looking at 3 p.m. Pacific time. The moon's at 29 degrees Leo, and the moon is directly going to be squaring Uranus and also separating from a trine with Chiron and Aries. So this may be a little emotionally unstable or emotionally erratic. I feel like Wednesday might be contentious for various reasons. Um, Tuesday going into Wednesday. Tuesday evening going into Wednesday. It feels like we're anxious or we're stressed out about things, or there's things that are hurting or things that are bothering us that we need to bring out to the light, that we need to discuss, that we need to talk about. And it feels like there's also conclusive choices or decisions that we're making about certain things on Wednesday as the moon is exiting Leo. I kind of feel like there's this energy of we're accepting that things are always going to be this way. We're accepting that this is the way this person is. We're accepting that this is the way it was meant to unfold, or this is the way that it was meant to, happen. Like there's this energy of like we're surrendering this, like, stressing over it, overthinking it, having to like reassess it and over. It's like we're just reaching this place of like conclusion. Tuesday going to Wednesday with various things. Okay. Moon trine Chiron is going to open up opportunity for healing, emotional healing, and deep openness and vulnerability in conversation. And the moon square that sun in Scorpio is like, let's take a look at what hurts. Let's take a look at what needs to transform or change. Okay. And the moon square Uranus is like, I got to free myself. If I am feeling emotionally bound by something, if I'm feeling emotionally conflicted by something, if something is bringing me instability, insecurity, and a lack of safety, Moon Square Uranus is like free yourself, liberate yourself, like detach in some type of way so that you can get space, you can get clarity, so you can get calmness, so that you can get security within yourself, right? So I just want you guys to be mindful because Wednesday, that Moon Square Uranus, I don't know, it's kind of giving me like a liberation point, a realization point, an acceptance point, and also like a detachment, like a breaking away or of something. Okay. So then we move forward on Wednesday, and the moon goes into Virgo. So the moon in Virgo transit, my loves, uh, uh, Wednesday is gonna be a little messy. Okay, starting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and anyways, it's gonna be messy. Why? Because the moon is in Mercury sign starting Wednesday at 2100 hours, starting at 10 p.m. Okay. No, 2100 hours is 9 p.m. My bad. I've never been in the military. I don't know military time that well, okay? 2100 hours is 9 p.m. So at 9 p.m. the moon goes into Virgo. But as the moon goes into Virgo, it's being ruled by a Mercury who's retrograde in Sagittarius, who hit a conjunction with Mars on that day. Mercury and Mars are at 6 degrees conjoined in Sagittarius on Wednesday. And then the moon goes into Virgo, squaring Mercury and Mars on Wednesday. And the moon is being ruled by the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, who's sitting with Mars. So it seems like Wednesday by 9 p.m. and moving forward into Thursday and Friday, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of stress in the air, or there's a lot of anxiety and nervousness, there's paranoia, or even we have our first inkling with the moon in Virgo of what the Mercury retrograde is going to be about for us, of what the narrative or the story is going to be about with Mercury retrograde for us. There may be something that comes back from the past with the moon in Virgo on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We may get that text, we may get that phone call. There may be, something that we got to address or deal with from the past in some type of way. There could be something that is just plans that go to shit or things that just fall apart and things just you know, we thought something was going to unfold or happen in a certain way, and it just does not unfold or happen in that way. And then the moon in Virgo on squaring Mercury, Mars on Thursday morning, from Wednesday going to Thursday morning, is that moment of like the car breaking down, the the washing machine catches on fire. I'm just thinking about Mercury, Mars, and Saturn. I'm thinking about fires. Just give me fires or explosions. The iPad, you drop your phone and you left your phone on top of the car, you drove away, and your phone is in the middle of the road somewhere on your hour commute to your job. Your phone is somewhere on the road, somewhere on the freeway. Okay. Things like this with Moon and Virgo squaring Mercury, Mars, starting Wednesday evening, going into Thursday. Okay. You want to you want to dot your I's, you want to cross your T's, you want to make sure that everything is good before you leave. You want to make sure you have everything before you leave. You want to make sure that all the plans are solidified. If you're going on vacation or traveling this weekend, especially, you want to make sure there hasn't been any delays or cancellations or any changes with the plans. You might want to just double check the itinerary and just to see, right, right. So, very important because things are going to start to get a little messy Wednesday evening, moving into Thursday. Okay, specifically because the moon is squaring Mercury, Mars, and Mercury, Mars are also separating from that. They're also in that conjunction on that day. Okay. So just be mindful. Also, the moon is co-present with the South Node. So this is about karmic losses or karmic releasing of things or karmic endings, or this is about, a depletion of energy, something like this. Oh my gosh, I just spilled tea all over myself. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's okay. Things happen. There's no sugar in it or anything, so it's just gonna dry up. So then on Thursday, right, we have the moon in a solid square with Mercury and Mars by 3 a.m. And so, but we wake up on Thursday morning with the moon in Virgo, like moving into a conjunction with Uranus, or with the South Node in Virgo. But the beautiful thing about the moon in Virgo on Thursday is that the moon actually sextiles Venus. This moon Venus sextile can be a moment of romance or a moment of affection or a moment of intimacy or a moment of closeness that we have with somebody. And this kind of moment of vulnerability, this moment of it's like a confess. I don't know why. I'm just getting this message around confessions. This is my confession. Then you go and you got one on the way. It's my confession on you don't, and I don't know what to do, but I'm gonna give you part two of my confession. That is the moon in Virgo, sextile Venus in Scorpio, and Venus at 8 degrees is really giving confession energy. It's giving like this moment of like openness and vulnerability, and also maybe like a moment of sadness for some people, with the moon sextiling Venus and Scorpio on Thursday, November 13th. Um, the moon is, oh yeah, no, I think it's also because the moon is with the South Node. Okay. So that's around 9 a.m. Pacific time. The moon is going to be sextiling Venus on Thursday morning. We love that. And then by 3 p.m. the moon hits the south node. Yeah, the moon's at 12 and the south node's at 14. So it's actually going to be around like 5 p.m. that the moon and the south node are conjoined. And so, and I just want to I want to remind you guys that Saturn is back in Pisces with Neptune. So, whenever the moon transits these signs, like, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, whenever the moon is transiting a mutable sign, especially now that Saturn's back in Pisces, we have to deal with some kind of karmic struggle or karmic difficulty a lot of times, or we can experience these narratives or these moments where we got to deal with some kind of loss, we got to let someone go, we got to put up a boundary, we got to grieve, something like this. It's the combination of the moon on the south node with Saturn and Neptune retrograded back in Pisces that's kind of giving me this energy of kind of like, this is no longer for me, or I'm going to stop fighting or struggling for this, or I'm going to stop trying to make this work. I just need to accept that this is like not for me, or that this is coming to an end, or that this is leaving in some type of way. Okay. This is a really good day for meditation, though. This is a really good day for spiritual work. This is a really good day to connect with ancestors, to take a nap and see what comes through in your dreams with the moon and the south node together. The south node is our portal to the other side of the veil. I want you guys to think about the south node as like, you know, when your closet becomes the door to Narnia. That's what the South Node is. And so when the moon's on the South Node on Thursday, we have an opportunity to profoundly connect to something spiritual or something intuitive or something, we have a little bit more access to the realms of the unknown. So, doing spiritual, intuitive, meditative work that day, pulling cards for yourself, things like this, those are all things I'd recommend doing on Thursday, okay? With the moon and the South Node together. All right. I mean, that's pulling cards is like a daily practice for me. So, I pull tarot spreads multiple times a day. I'm always, looking at different cards. I'm always pulling different oracle cards and, I love Lenormand cards. I've fallen in love with Lenormand cards. I'm always doing Lenormand readings on myself, it's part of my daily practice. It doesn't have to be yours, but I will say on Thursday, this is a really good day to connect to something deeper, something beyond you. Okay. All right. And then we move on. And we get to Friday, and the moon is going to be moving into this opposition with Saturn. As the moon is separating from the South Node in Virgo on Friday, I'm looking at 9 a.m. Friday. The moon's at 21, about to approach an opposition with Saturn and Neptune. So by Friday afternoon, I'm looking at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. And the moon is at 24, opposite Saturn at 25. And then that evening, by evening time, the moon gets the last degrees of Virgo and is opposing Neptune. So at 9 p.m., the moon's at 27, Neptune's at 29. And then by midnight, the moon, like, it gets the last degrees of Virgo. Yeah, 29, opposite Neptune, 29. I'm looking at midnight, exactly. The moon's at 29, going into Saturday morning and opposite Neptune at 29. And then the moon goes into Libra for the weekend. So the moon's going to be in Libra for the weekend, which I think is going to be lighthearted fun, but we're going to start to have the moon in cardinal signs during the weekend, which is really interesting. I think we had the moon in cardinal sign in Cancer last weekend. That was like yeah, it was our first weekend of the moon starting to be in cardinal signs throughout the weekend. Well, the moon's going to start to be in cardinal signs. And so, the moon in Libra is going to bring a lot of the moon in Libra is being disposited by Venus and Scorpio. Um, and the moon in Libra is going to be making a sextile with Mercury and Mars. So I don't know. The weekend is feeling a little bit more fun, a little bit more balanced, a little bit more harmonious. We may find ourselves going to an art festival or wanting to spend money or going to a nice restaurant or even going on a date or doing something romantic this weekend with the moon in Libra. But before we get there, I want to talk about the moon opposite Saturn and Neptune on Friday, okay? Because the moon opposite Saturn and Neptune, this can be about a really heavy emotional energy, or this can be about like karmic rejection or karmic struggles, or this could even be about fears or paranoias that are coming up. And we can have kind of these moments of like escapism or moments of delusion. So on Friday, what I will say is be mindful of overindulging or escaping on Friday. Be mindful of drinking too much, eating too much, spending too much money, whatever, because that moon opposite Saturn and moon opposite Neptune, we're going to be feeling some kind of lack or some kind of deprivation, or we may feel some kind of sadness or heaviness, and we're going to look to cope with that in some way. And so the coping could look like, oh, Neptune and Saturn and Pisces. Let's turn to alcohol. Let's turn to drugs. Let's turn to disassociation. Let's turn to disconnect or avoidance, right? And something like that. So we want to just be mindful, okay? But also Moon opposite Neptune, this is like soulmate energy, So I think, we're still in this period of meeting people that are meant to be very pivotal or that are meant to be very influential in our life or meant to kind of like activate and move things and get some kind of momentum going in our life. There's a strong opportunity for that this weekend with the moon going into Libra. But moon opposite Neptune can also be about confusion and about deception and about theft and loss. So, this Friday, especially, well, in general, with Saturn and Neptune back in Pisces, be mindful of scams and deception, okay? But particularly this week, you want to be mindful of that on Friday when the moon is opposite Saturn and Neptune, because there could be moments of like scams, deception, manipulation, being taken advantage of, being naive. That's a very mutable sign, Pisces, Virgo thing. These are signs that are very innocent. They're very naive. Pisces and Virgo, these are signs that they expect the best of people. And they're like, oh, they'll never do that to me. And, oh, they'll never take advantage of me. And, they'll never. But then they get taken advantage of, they get used, they get manipulated, they get scammed, they get deceived, they get, right? And then they're like, they have to wake up to the truth that guess what? Not everybody is as sweet and kind and loving as compassionate as them. Okay, so that's one of the things you got to understand. Or even righteous, like this idea of righteousness, this idea of treating others with fairness and respect and with good morals and good ethics and things like this, right? When the moon is opposite Saturn and Neptune, who are retrograde in Pisces, we can wake up to some delusion around we thought this person was like this and they're not. We thought this person was honest or truthful, and they're not. We thought that this person was clear and intentional, and they're not. We thought that this person was, stable and secure, and they're not, right? So we just need to be very mindful of, you know, delusion, waking up from illusions, escapism, avoidance, things like this on Friday. Okay. So then the moon goes into Libra. The moon separates from that square with Neptune and Saturn. But the good thing is that the moon is trining Uranus. And we also have a moon sun sextile on Saturn on Friday evening. So the moon trine Uranus is fun. Okay. Saturday night, the moon is trine Uranus, and the moon is actually separating. I'm sorry. Friday evening, the moon is trine Uranus, and the moon is separating from a sextile with the sun. So this is very exciting. This is very, let's do something different. Let's do something new. Let's do something that we've never done before. The moon trine Uranus is a very fun, liberating aspect on Friday. So, but it's going to be complicated though, because it's moon trine Uranus, but it's also moon opposite Saturn. So it's like, Uranus, moon trine Uranus is like, oh, let's have fun. Let's go and spend money. Let's go ahead and do something we've never done before. But moon opposite Saturn is like, oh, wait, do you have responsibilities? Do you have work tomorrow? Do you have to get up? Right? Do you really want that for yourself? Like, if you're feeling heavy or sad, are you kind of going out and partying just to escape, just to avoid your problems? Are you not working through the inner stuff? Like, there could be some really complex things that kind of show up with the moon trine Uranus, but also opposing Neptune and Saturn on Friday afternoon, going to Friday evening. Okay. And then on Saturday, the moon goes into Libra, and we start the moon in Libra. And the moon in Libra is responding to Venus, who's in Scorpio, but the moon in Libra right away is trining Pluto. And the moon is separating from that trine with Uranus. So whatever I've noticed that when the moon is in an air sign trining Pluto, we tend to get rebellion, we tend to get protests, we tend to get social engagement, social community building. We tend to get people participating in events and social events, going out to community, going out to do community or friend circle things. So like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hang out with my friends. We're gonna go hiking, or we're gonna go to the beach, or we're gonna go whatever, whatever. So with the moon in Libra trine Uranus and Pluto, we might see an increase of social activity and social engagement this weekend collectively, but also people are going to be organizing for like social justice things, protests and, denouncing leaders and things like this. We're going to see that this weekend for sure. But yeah, the moon. Okay, so then let me see. Let me keep going with the time here. Let me go by 3 hour increments. So then just looking to see. Oh, and the moon's gonna sextile Mercury and Mars. Yeah, that's very stimulating. So Saturday is looking like a very stimulating day. It's looking like a very exciting day. It's looking like kind of like wild. I don't know. I'm looking at the moon in Libra, sextile Mercury, Mars, and Sag, and I'm thinking about the moon separating from that trine with Uranus. And I'm just kind of getting like, I don't know, it's feeling very wild and very fun and very exciting. It's feeling a little spicy. Um, There can be some disagreements in relationships though with Mercury, Mars in Sag, sextile Moon in Libra, and Venus in Scorpio. So we just want to be very mindful of doing too much, asking for too much, being too much, you know, being a little reckless. I don't know. I'm getting a recklessness. This is like giving reckless energy this weekend. So if you want to have fun and be and do like chaotic things, like do that. But also just be mindful that there is going to be like a kind of reckless, dangerous, you know, energy. I think those that are kind of self-destructive are going to be out acting wild this upcoming weekend. So just be cautious of those people, okay? If you know that someone is like just very explosive and self-destructive, or someone is very kind of like they're just a dangerous energy or unpredictable energy, be mindful of being surrounded by those people this weekend because they're going to be a little active, okay? But this is really good for meeting new people. This is really good for going out on dates and doing things that are kind of like, artistic or beautiful, going to a museum, going to a theater show, going to a concert or some kind of performance, Moon and Libra things, okay? All those things are good. Also, if you just need to rest and sleep in, that's fine. So we get to Sunday, the moon's at 11 degrees Libra. The moon separating from this sextile with Mercury and Mars. But then the moon is void. Yeah, so on Sunday we have a void of course moon for about 6 hours, starting from 6 a.m. to about 12, actually a little bit after 12 p.m. No, it keeps going. Yeah. So we have a void moon, and what I mean by a void moon is that the moon isn't making any aspects to any other planets. So the moon is just kind of like lingering and doing her own thing. So this can look like on Sunday a few different things. This can look like a little bit of like a disconnect or a feeling of like emptiness or a feeling of like isolation or wanting to be like alone possibly. But even though we're this weekend is calling us to community. So I think that we need to be mindful of our energy levels when the moon is void on Sunday. The moon's going to be void for about, I believe, 9 hours. I think from like, let me see, hold on. Yeah, the moon's going to be void for quite a few hours, like all morning. Dang. Yeah, the moon starts being void around midnight, and then it doesn't make an aspect to a planet until like the following day. It opposes Chiron around around 7 p.m. It opposes Chiron, but that's not considered an aspect because it needs to make a planetary aspect. No, it's like, yeah, it's not even the moon's going to be void. Even the moon doesn't get out of its void status until Monday morning until it squares Jupiter. So the moon's going to be void on Sunday in Libra. So this can manifest as a few different things. This can manifest as a little bit of, a moment of isolation or a little bit of emotional disconnect or a little or a moment of like just kind of like energetic like okay, what's going on? We're just feeling kind of energetically lost, or we're feeling kind of like, tired, or we're feeling just very down, or we're feeling a need like we're not really feeling integrated with the moon. We're not really feeling integrated with our emotional experience of our emotional lived experience. So we just want to be very mindful, okay? And that's how we actually wrap up Sunday with the moon opposite Chiron and Aries. So I'm looking at midnight Monday morning from Sunday to Monday morning, and the moon's at 23 directly opposite Chiron in Aries. So this moon Chiron opposition, as it builds into Monday, there can be these moments of healing when it comes to relationships and partnerships. So there could also be moments of wounding, like transits always present us an opportunity to like be better and do better in some type of way. We can give in to the like low vibrational manifestations of the transits, or we can take the experiences that can be low vibrational and we could turn them into something good. This is something that I was talking to a friend of mine about last night. Um, you know, one of the things I was saying is like the universe is always going to give us an opportunity with negative experiences to turn it into something positive or turn it into something good. And many times, in order for us to turn a negative into a positive, we have to like overcome our ego. We have to learn a lesson. We have to humble ourselves. We have to be patient. Like there's generally some kind of virtuous quality that we need to respond to in order to turn a negative experience or situation into something positive and something good. Because whenever we're presented with like a challenging or conflicting or negative situation, the universe is testing how you're gonna respond to it. Are you gonna feed into that negative energy and make it worse, make it more dramatic, make it more of a crisis or more destructive or whatever? Or are you gonna do your best to kind of take a step back and absolve that energy and transmute it into something good. Okay. And so the moon opposite Chiron, there can be a moment of woundedness when it comes to love and partnership, but then the response is this a moment that we can make positive and turn into something healing? Is this a moment of learning in a relationship, right, with someone else? Or are we going to exacerbate the woundedness, go off, get angry, get mad, not talk about it, shut down, and make it even worse and perpetuate the negativity, right? The universe is always going to test us with this principle of, you know, you experience something, it's hard, it's difficult, it's sad, it's whatever. Can you transmute it and turn it into something good? Can you bring it to a good outcome? If you can do that, you'll get rewarded greatly. You'll get more abundance. You'll get more success. You'll get more opportunity, right? That one moment of negativity turning into a positive can blossom into all these other opportunities for positivity and good things, right? So, don't get too wrapped up in a moment of negativity or a moment of rejection. Don't get too wrapped up in a moment of challenge and hardship, okay? Because you always want to remember that yes, that's the opportunity, that's the experience, that's the initial thing that we're dealing with, but the outcome is really up to us. How we respond to it, how we react to it, how we transmute that and turn that into something different, right? It's up to us. So, does that make sense? I just want to give you guys that insight because I don't know, the moon in Libra opposite Chiron and Aries is like I'm either gonna hurt you or I'm gonna help you heal, or you're gonna hurt me, or we could turn this into healing, right? It's like, what are we gonna do with it? What are we gonna do with that transit? Are we going to perpetuate the woundedness? Are we going to perpetuate the victim mentality? Are we going to perpetuate the powerlessness? Or are we going to use this as a moment to heal our relationship with power, to heal our relationship with, authority, to heal our relationship with agency, right? So that we can turn victimness into empowerment, so we can turn woundedness into healing, so we can turn, anger and rage into empathy and compassion and understanding. Anger and rage, Aries. When we're mad about something, when we're frustrated about something, we're usually hurt about something, and our ego is getting involved, right? Because when we're hurting, what we really want is recognition, love, affection, tenderness, compassion, right? But a lot of times when we're hurting, what we do is we actually get mad and angry about it because we don't want to internalize or experience the emotions internally. We want to do something about it. We want to have agency over our emotions so they manifest externally. And then that's when it turns into anger and rage and like blaming others and attacking others and like hurting others as a manifestation, as a projection of our own pain, our own woundedness. You see? So it's like there's like the opportunity with Moon opposite Chiron is don't just get mad and blame your partner and go off and be like, it's your fault I'm feeling this way, but actually take a look at yourself and be like, wait a minute, your actions, your behaviors are making me feel this way. Can we do something differently? Can you do something differently? Right? Can I reframe this in my own way so I don't have to experience this in this way? Right? So, yeah, I just want to give you guys that food for thought because it was something that came up yesterday with one of my friends when we were in conversation, and I was like, the universe is always going to give us an opportunity to turn a negative into a positive, right? Whether we do it is up to us, but that opportunity is always going to present ourselves. And we always know too, because like when we experience a moment of like frustration or difficulty or challenge or conflict, we have to make a choice. Are we going to do the high road? Or are we going to do like the low road? Are we going to, do the good thing or the right thing or the positive thing? Or are we going to just perpetuate the negativity and just like go off and just like, and a lot of us, we experience this at work too. Like you'll have that one client that is just like, gets under your skin. And you're like, should I just go off on this person and say fuck it and lose my job and this is just my last day? Or should I just smile and say this is okay and just keep it pushing? You know, we have to make those choices. And sometimes we have to make those choices in the moment. But Mercury's retrograde on top of in Sag on top of Mars. So this is a time where we need to slow down with our decision-making process and our choices. Before we impulsively make a decision, before we impulsively say something, we need to really slow down and take a step back and consider the outcome, the impact, right? The results, consider what we really want and what that comes to the outcome, right? So I want you guys to keep this in your mind, okay? This week especially. As we take the plunge into Mercury retrograde, as Mercury goes into the underworld, right? Mercury goes into the underworld. He's going to be going behind the sun, and we're not going to be able to see Mercury for a while. So, it would be cool to see Mercury and Mars together in the sky right now, though, because they are together in the sky. But the sun is so close to Mercury and Mars, I don't think you're going to be able to see them visually. Mercury and Mars, I don't think you could see them. They would actually be showing. They would actually be showing as like an evening star. So when Mercury comes out of his retrograde. He's an evening star right now. He's gonna be reborn as a morning star. So what we'll see when he's done with his retrograde, he's gonna go on the other side of the sun. He's gonna go all the way back behind the sun, but he's gonna rise first ahead of the sun. So we're gonna see Mercury rising ahead of the sun and Mercury being a morning star. So that's what when Mercury goes through retrograde, he leaves his status as an evening star and goes into his morning star status. And then he has to catch back up. And then he goes direct and he catches back up to the sun. He goes past the sun. And then he does it again. He retrogrades and he goes back behind the sun, right? He goes into the underworld. That's what Mercury retrograde's about. Mercury retrograde's about Mercury going into the underworld and him kind of resetting his path, going backwards, and then coming into the light, being reborn as a morning star. And then we do that whole cycle again, right? As he is a morning star, he transits the sun, he goes ahead of the sun, he becomes an evening star, and then he retrogrades and he goes back behind the sun, and it's part of his cycle. So, and it takes a while. Mercury has a 3, 6, 9. He has like a 3 month, roughly like a 3 month cycle. So, roughly, it's like 2 months and 2 weeks. 3, 6, 9. It's like a 9 week cycle that he has. He has like a little, I think he has like a 9 week. Yeah, I think it's like a 9 week cycle that he goes through. So, okay, my loves, but yes, I think we're gonna wrap up here. I think this is what we're gonna wrap up with. We are 2 hours and 20 minutes in. Everybody that hung out this entire time, thank you for being here. I love you all so much. Everybody that bought a badge, I appreciate you so much. Just to let y'all know, I'm not doing readings right now. I'm not doing readings right now. I'm not offering advice. I'm not offering guidance. I'm not giving anything of myself to anybody but myself right now. I'm in this place where I just been feeling burnt out and I got big choices and big decisions that I got to make coming up in my life. I'm going to be moving and changing my whole life around very soon. And I need clarity and focus. And I just need to be in my own energy. I just am in a place right now where I just can't. I just can't carry other people's stuff right now. And I just need to be so clear and so focused on myself and what I want and where I'm going, what I'm doing. And what's going to give me that is by not being so involved in the lives of others. One of the things that is just a truth, I'm a Pisces rising and I'm a Neptunian. So I have Neptune in Capricorn, sextile my Sun and my Mercury in Scorpio. I'm a Neptune guy. Um, what do I have Neptune also, I think, square my Mars. Yeah, I'm a Neptune. I'm a Piscean Neptunian guy. So what I've noticed about being a Pisces rising and being a Neptunian person is my energy is it's very like it has no container. It's very effervescent. It's very, I'm just a part of the world. Like I'm just a drop in the ocean. So even like little minor things, even like, just connecting to people daily energetically, it has a really big impact on me. Like it really drains me and exhausts me, and it really taps me out. And it's because I'm so Neptunian, I'm so sensitive, I'm so psychic, I'm so, delicate. I'm a delicate little flower. And so, for me to get clarity, I need to really remove myself psychically and energetically from other people in all ways, shapes, and forms, right? This is why living alone has been the best thing for me because living alone has really allowed me to just be in my own energy. Those of us that are Neptune people, you have Neptune aspecting your sun, your moon, you have Neptune, in a stellium with all your stuff. You have Neptune on your ascendant, or your Pisces rising like me, or your Pisces sun and moon. We really don't have energetic boundaries with the outside world in a lot of ways. So, or our environment. Like we're so sensitive to our environment, we're sensitive to others psychically and emotionally and spiritually. So we need alone time. We need isolation. We need to disconnect from the world and from others every now and then in order to get clear and stable and grounded within ourselves, in order to replenish our well, replenish our energetic batteries. Because overall, when you're a Neptune person, being present in the material world and showing up for others, it drains you and exhausts you. It depletes you, right? Neptune is an energy that has a hard time dealing with the material world. This is also why Pisces people struggle with the material world. They struggle with money, they struggle with finances, they struggle with work, they struggle with their health. Like just getting up and existing in the material world every day for 12th house people, for Neptune people, for Pisces people is hard, is difficult because they're not of this realm. Pisces is not of this world, right? Fish do not swim on land. Where do we see fish? We see them in the ocean, okay? In another world, in another reality, right? So many of us that are Neptunian, Pisces, 12th house people, we feel like a fish out of water in the material world. We feel like a fish out of water in land, on land. Because we are. It's exactly, we're a fish out of water, okay? So we're trying to figure out how to deal with the material world, right? And in order for us to do that, a lot of times we have to get really clear. We have to be alone. We have to be in our own energy so that we can, be grounded and stable. And so we don't get tapped out or exhausted. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm at this place where I just need clarity and I need my own to be in my own energy. And I just can't be mixing my waters with anybody else's waters. I can't be mixing my emotional water energy with anyone else right now. You know, like I just can't. So I just need a few weeks off, to really refill my well and to really get clear and grounded and to really prepare for the next steps, my big move, because I have a big move coming. I'm feeling it, and I just need to make it happen. And I can allow myself to focus on myself. So it's good. It's a good thing. We live in a culture that's so much about like work and hustle and productivity, and I have a Capricorn moon, so I know all about that. But like, there's times where we just need to rest, and we just need to be a recluse, so we need to just be in our own energy. And when we do that, when we give ourselves that grace of being in our own energy and being quiet and being in silence and being disconnected from the world, you know what we get? We get clarity. That's where the answers come from. That's when, the downloads drop in. That's when the solution shows up. That's when the next steps manifest. You know what I mean? Or become clear. because we got to remove ourselves from all the outside noise. There's so much noise. There's so much noise. This person has this opinion. This person has this to say. Social media is telling you this. Your parents are saying this. Your boss is saying this. Your kids are like, there's just so much noise that we can't even hear ourselves. We can't even listen into ourselves. So there's just so much noise, there's so much information, there's so much static and stimulation that we don't even know what we're thinking, what we're feeling. We don't even have clarity within our own self, right? So that's where I'm like, in this place where I'm like, let me get out of everyone else's noise. Like, let me get into a place of like silence and solitude so I can get clarity. Because whenever I do that, whenever I get silent and solitudous, I don't know if that's a word, but it now is. That's when I'm able to like feel clarity. That's when I get all these answers, and that's when I'm like, okay, I know what the next steps are. So gift yourself that. You don't always got to be on. You don't always got to be hustling. The work is still going to be there tomorrow, right? You take a break, you take a week, 2 weeks off. The work is still going to be, nothing's going away. The work is still going to be there, right? Like, so, we got to develop that healthy relationship with productivity and work and like rest and like, rejuvenation. And that's what we're learning right now, anyways, collectively, because the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo. And that's what the eclipses in Pisces and Virgo have been teaching us is like, what is that balance between like work and productivity and like rest and self-care, right? Like, what is that balance between like your waking life and your sleeping life? Because you got to get enough rest. You got to sleep, right? Pisces is the sign of sleep and rest, and Virgo is a sign of health and productivity and work, right? And when we are out of balance, it's usually because we're not, especially in today's culture, we're burning ourselves out, we're working too much, or we're not resting enough or sleeping enough. So, okay, my loves, but have a beautiful, blessed day. I'll let you know my stories when my calendar is open again. Um, and I'm gonna go ahead and post this on YouTube. So if you guys want to go rewatch this on YouTube, you can. I'm gonna post this on social media as well, on my page. And yeah, I love you. I love you all so much. So, Mercury's retrograde right now, so just slow down. All right, Jupiter's going retrograde tomorrow, so double slow down. Be mindful of arguing and fighting with people. Only pop a tire if they deserve it. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. All right, Venus is in Scorpio, digging up a lot of trauma and drama in relationships. The moon's in Leo for the first 3 days of this week, today, tomorrow, Wednesday. And then the moon goes into Virgo Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the moon's going to be in Libra Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so we have the signs of Leo, Virgo, and Libra activated by the moon. We are in our full moon and Taurus cycle, so this is our a full solid week of being in our full moon in Taurus. So what the big questions that the full moon cycle is asking us is what is valuable, what is worth investing in, what is safe, what is stable. Okay, and what it's revealing to us is what is not safe, what is not stable, what needs to transform and change, what needs to be purged, or what needs to be let go of. Sun in Scorpio, right? Opposite that full moon in Taurus. So it's like the things that are bringing goodness and positivity and abundance in our life, we invest in those things. We stabilize those things. We fully commit to those things. The things that are bringing us insecurity, confusion, doubt, a lack of reciprocity, a lack of reciprocity, okay, a lack of stability and safety. Those are the things that it's either we gotta purge it or move away from it or let it go, or it's got to transform and change so that it can become something that's stable and safe and secure and abundant. Okay. All right, my loves. But yes, so that's been our week ahead, Astro. Let's all take a moment to just decompress and close our eyes and like relax and give thanks and praise to the Lord and Spirit and the divine and God Almighty. We're so thankful and blessed to be able to share in this divine wisdom and magic. We're thankful for the planets. Where would we be without the planets? We wouldn't have day, we wouldn't have night. We wouldn't have, there would be a lot that we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the planets, okay? The planets are they are our guiding light. They are our parents. They are the gods that we worship. They are the gods that we've been worshiping since the beginning of time. Humanity, human beings have been worshiping the planets. Go look at all the ancient cultures. Go look at all the pictures and everything. They're all the stories of the planets. We've been worshiping the planets at the beginning of time. Okay. So that's why astrology is a sacred science, and that's why astrology is the language and the science of the gods, because the planets are the gods. Connecting some dots for you guys. All right, my loves. Mwah. I love you all so much. Have a beautiful, blessed Monday. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Light a candle. Say a prayer. Okay. And I will see you guys around. Okay. Bye.